Otaku in the Marvel DC Universe. Hey, fanfic family. So glad to see you here again to continue this incredible adventure. As always, kindly remember, this story is 100% fiction, so don't go looking for dimensional portals in your closet. All rights to this fantastic novel belong to the original author. We're just your humble narrators of epic tales. Are you enjoying the fanfic? Show it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and dropping us a like. And if you're impatient for more exclusive content, our Patreon is your happy place. Chapter 201 Another Black Technology. Late at night, Liang Yue turned off all the electrical appliances in his house, and then pulled down the main power switch. After that, he took the electromagnetic interference device he had just bought from the system store and carefully started it up. This was a spherical object, which looked a bit like the previous spherical camera in appearance. Both were spheres, but the electromagnetic interference device in front of him was silver-white, and there was no bamboo dragonfly on the top. On the surface, the special glass with horizontal and vertical lines, and the electronic components inside, looked quite high-tech. After pressing the start button, the entire sphere suddenly emitted a slight buzzing sound, and dots of light lit up all over its body, flashing rhythmically. Then, a keyboard occupying about 1/3 of the instrument's volume flipped down from the sphere, and a spotless display screen faced him according to the instructions. After Liang Yue operated on it for a while, the image on the display screen suddenly changed constantly, and soon shrank to the overhead view of a small courtyard in the blink of an eye. All the buildings and terrain within this range were displayed in 3D models on the screen. After checking a few times in the interference function options of this machine, the things he wanted to see immediately appeared on this small screen. Oh ho! There really are monitoring devices in my house? Who could be monitoring me? Forget it, I won't think about it for now. Let me take a look. There's one in the chandelier above my head. Hey. As he spoke, Liang Yue lightly jumped up from the sofa, twisted his arm nimbly, and reached out to take out an earphone-like thing from the lampshade. Then, with a clang sound, he threw it on the coffee table. There are two on the power socket side. It takes a little skill to take this one out. After glancing at the screen, Liang Yue's figure flashed, and when he reappeared, he had a screwdriver in his hand. After tinkering with the sockets in those two locations, two wafer-sized, disc-shaped cameras fell into his palm. Then, he casually threw them on the table in front of him. Yo? There's actually one under the coffee table. There's one in the lampshade in the bedroom. There are two under the bed, one for monitoring and one for listening. Quite complete. I wipe. There are actually three hidden in the window frame. There's one hanging behind the TV. There's even one hidden behind the mirror in my bathroom. Okay, not bad. There are 5 in the garage. I wipe. There are also 2 in my Hummer. Then there's the lawn and flower pots in the yard. Okay, it should be clean now. Let me count a total of 27. Liang Yue was sitting on the sofa at this time, with his arms folded, looking calmly at the pile of precision instruments in front of him. He took out a Grand Forest Specialty Large Tree strawberry fruit from his hand, bit it in his mouth, and his teeth grinded loudly. After staring at these instruments for a while, this guy took out a small paper box from under the coffee table, piled all these miscellaneous models of things into it, and then put them into the storage space. I'll ask Non-Lixiang about it later. That elder sister should know about these things. It's a pity to throw them away like this. If I can turn them into my own use. After making up his mind, Liang Yue turned on the power switch in his house again. However, when he was about to turn off the electromagnetic interference device, this guy suddenly hesitated for a moment. After a series of skilled operations, the interference range of the display on the screen suddenly expanded to its operating limit, which was a radius of 100 meters. After a careful investigation, Liang Yue found a scattered distribution of monitoring equipment on the 3D model of the entire block. Among them, some were naturally installed by the residents of the community themselves, for the sake of their own safety. In addition, there were also many monitoring networks that were obviously set up by professional personnel to monitor a certain target. Most of them were distributed in the surrounding area of Liang Yue's residence, and even on the road he took to and from school every day. It's a pity, the one in my hand is just an electromagnetic interference device. How happy would it be if it were an electromagnetic pulse bomb? After dealing with these things, Liang Yue then came to the basement, went straight down to the second floor, and then flashed into the Stronghold world. At this time, the Stronghold world had just arrived on the second morning of double time, which was the moment when the morning sun was rising through the village's communication platform. After calling Rachel to pick him up, this guy climbed to the top of the attic and began to admire the miasma-filled, bright-drawn scenery in the surrounding swamp. At the same time, Just as Liang Yue entered his private world to enjoy his double-time happiness, many people in the real world were in a flurry of activity in the dark. Liang Yue's removal of monitoring equipment within the scope of the room one by one through the electromagnetic interference device had already been reported to many people. After all, he doesn't have the ability to destroy all the monitoring equipment in his home in an instant when dealing with it. He had to do it part by part gradually, so the whole process was naturally seen by many interested people, which was inevitable, not to mention what those people behind the scenes would react. Anyway, Liang Yue had no interest in knowing these things. However, in this guy's heart, he could vaguely guess their identities. First of all, Shield was definitely among them. After all, his neighbor Carlson had personally come to his door a few days ago, which showed that he was already within their range of attention. Then there was Hydra. Although this shadowy organization had not yet surfaced, their pace of expanding their strength in the dark had never stopped. Now that Liang Yue, such a powerful unit, appeared under their noses, how could they let it go easily? In addition, intelligence agencies such as the CIA and FBI that exist in the United States may not have this motive. Then, he is now with Elizabeth, and there seems to be a group of royal guards standing behind her. It is definitely unrealistic to say that Liang Yue has not been investigated in secret. Following this line of thought, it seems reasonable and logical for them to install a few monitoring devices in his home to analyze and judge Liang Yue's character and nature. Then, even his own mother is very suspicious. After all, sons travel thousands of miles, right? Moreover, it is really a matter of course for her to install a few monitoring devices in his property in New York City, which is far away on the other side of the earth. As for the specific implementer, Liu must be involved. Girls, did you miss me? Jumping down from Rachel's body, looking at Arwen, Poison Toad, and others who were enthusiastically discussing on top of the library while eating breakfast. After landing, Liang Yue immediately opened his arms, pretending to embrace all living beings. Unfortunately, only Shizuka-sensei actually came to greet him and cooperated with this guy's performance. Liang Yue-kun, I missed you. I already feel it. Feeling the ferocity of Shizuka-sensei in his arms, Liang Yue felt a burst of relief, gently patted her back, and then put his arm around her waist and came to the crowd. What, have you finished your seclusion? Sayatakaji was smearing a layer of jam on her bread at this time. Taking the time to glance at him and asked almost, anyway, killing mosquitoes and flies can't improve it anymore. I'm going to go to the dungeon later to practice with those goblins. Really? Before, your hair manipulation could only extend a dozen centimeters. It's been less than half a month, and you can use it to deal with the goblins. Of course, the level 3 ability already has a little bit of lethality, but it still needs to be improved. Show it to us. Hearing this, Liang Yue didn't answer, and immediately silently used his ability, and the originally slender wisp of hair between his eyebrows shot out like a black spirit snake. It wandered over the table in front of the girls for a while, and suddenly the hair split into a semicircle-shaped simple basket. Then, with a thought, the paper box containing the monitoring equipment suddenly appeared on it, and then it was taken to Nanlixiang. Chapter 202: The Birth of an Octopus. Having arrived at the entrance of the dungeon, the teams had already been divided beforehand. After exchanging greetings, they quickly entered the dungeon in groups. Only Liang Yue was left standing alone in the original spot. After realizing that he wasn't popular, this guy took it in stride, shrugging his shoulders nonchalantly. He scanned the round hall in front of him and quickly noticed the differences from before. A small path has opened up on the side of the stone wall. Oh, there's even a side hall over there. The original stalactite hanging rock ceiling has also been pushed up a lot. It seems they really took my words to heart and are preparing to make a collapsing cliff. Why are there a few more boxes here? Oh, they're for storing equipment and various consumables. It's a pity that Grand Forest only produces low-level goods. Even the strongest boss in this dungeon, the corpse thief Bone Prison Breath, is only level 19, so it can't drop anything good, eh? Speaking of which, I wonder if the system has removed the Lord's artifact this time? After a period of aimless pondering, Liang Yue also walked into the dungeon entrance. The map he chose was the venomous Thunderous Ruin. The boss of this dungeon is a purple cat demon king that can release poisonous mist. Even in the normal difficulty dungeon, its speed and jumping ability are quite amazing. In this real-world difficulty, of course, it's warrior level. Just follow the previous progress. The scene in front of him blurred for a moment, and then Liang Yue instantly arrived inside the dungeon, in the same dense forest and low grassland environment. However, compared to the previous dark and dense forest, this venomous Thunderous Ruin seemed more humid and hot, with a faint mist floating in the air. The ground was also sparsely dotted with muddy puddles, some with ordinary accumulated water, and some with small pits containing dark purple liquid. Purple represents poison. If you accidentally step into it, you will immediately be poisoned and lose health. For Liang Yue, who still possessed the main character mechanism, being poisoned was actually a troublesome matter, so even he had to be extra careful of his feet in the current dungeon map. Wow! Soon, after only taking a few steps forward, a unique, fierce howl of a cat demon came from the depths of the faint mist ahead. Upon hearing the sound, Liang Yu's mind quickly shifted, and he silently activated his ability in an instant. His half-length black hair, which was originally tied behind his head, began to rapidly lengthen and become unusually thick, then spread out freely in the air afterward. Liang Yue directly divided it into strands about the width of kelp, swaying and plunging towards the front. Speaking of which, the good thing about the monsters in this dungeon is that they don't know what fear is. After seeing an intruder, they will rush up without hesitation and start attacking relentlessly. With Liang Yu's current appearance, his 5-meter-long hair freely waving and dancing in the air, with the front portion of his hair divided into dozens of strands of thick hair quickly wrapped around them tightly in the air, tightening. No matter how they struggled or tore, they couldn't break free soon. These little guys were made into mummies. Then should I tie them up and strangle them one by one like I did with those mosquitoes and flies before? But is there such a thing as suffocation for the cat demons in this dungeon? And I didn't see any scars after cutting so many times with a sword before, so there must be no limb breakage in that case. I can only use the most primitive method: slam. Bang. Bang bang. Bang bang bang. Along with a series of muffled sounds, the python-like strands of hair in front of Liang Yue began to rotate and move up and down. The cat demons were now helplessly wrapped into spools, and then constantly lifted into the air and slammed down by Liang Yu's thick hair. Lifted into the air and slammed down. The damage caused by each slam was not too high, only consuming about 1/10 of the cat demon's health bar, but the momentum created by this was quite good. Liang Yue now looked like a demon hiding behind a group of snakes. Every time he took a step forward, 2 or 3 kittens wrapped in his hair would be slammed down. The ground was hit with a thudding sound, and broken grass flew everywhere. Soon, along with a series of shrill screams, the cat demons on the entire map turned into piles of fly ash and scattered with the wind. Finally, only a pile of scattered drops was left on the ground. Accompanied by a Kim Guanzhang style, emotionless laughter, Liang Yue now walked slowly into the iron gate of the next level with his hands behind his back. Soon, as time passed, the 5 daily dungeon runs were used up in the blink of an eye. After reaping the last wave of loot, Liang Yue returned to the outside of the dungeon gate with a flash of light in front of him. After this targeted training, he finally grasped some tricks regarding the use of his abilities from the current stage. My hair manipulation ability cannot directly cause any damage to the target. It's barely enough to deal with cat demons and goblins in the dungeon, but if it is put into reality, it can only be used as an auxiliary at most. I can clearly distinguish this. Arriving next to the dungeon gate, Liang Yue casually opened the storage box in front of him and placed the loot from this dungeon into it, sorted by category. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, this guy suddenly had a thought in his mind. After thinking about it, he turned back and took a few bottles of low-level blood replenishing potions from the box and put them into his storage space. Although I can replenish blood by eating things now, it's good to have 2 bottles with me, just in case. Hair manipulation ability proficiency 13921/50000. Practice has proven that using one's own hair ability to fight, although it is a bit low in lethality and a bit slow in efficiency, the harvest is very satisfactory to Liang Yue. In just these 5 dungeon runs, the proficiency of the ability directly increased by more than 3,000. Not only that, Liang Yue also discovered during the process of fighting monsters that the higher the level and the more resistant the monsters are to falling, the more efficient the improvement in his proficiency. After using up today's 5 dungeon run opportunities, Liang Yue has officially cleared the king level of Venomous Thunderous Ruin, all the way from start to finish, and even the Cat Demon King was not spared then. He also successfully advanced to the new dungeon map Frosty Dark Forest, and after a friendly exchange with the final boss, Ice Magician Krat, he also completed the king level difficulty. When he comes back tomorrow, Liang Yue can continue to go to the next dungeon Jekyll to wrestle with the Minotaur King. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 203 Flames and Dust. Liang Yue's purpose in running dungeons, although to train the aggressiveness and usage methods of hair manipulation, and also to gain some proficiency along the way, was ultimately still aimed at killing enemies. Therefore, although his efficiency in using hair to beat enemies wasn't as fast as hacking with a sword, his speed in clearing dungeons was still not slow. The time spent on each dungeon was about 5 minutes or so. 5 dungeons could be cleared in half an hour. In comparison, senior sister Z and teacher Shizuka were different from the conversations of the girls before. Liang Yue could also feel that although they were also using cat demons and goblins to train their skills, it was more playful in nature in the half hour just now. It would be good if they could clear one dungeon. Therefore, after Liang Yue finished his own session, he returned directly to the village above ground, and then silently began his daily cultivation. Whether it was the Hangshan swordplay, stepping on a reed across the river, great hammer fist, or the unnamed meditation technique given to him by Gandalf, they all required persistent training and a lot of time. Saying that, Liang Yue sat down with a comfortable expression, put his arm around Alwyn's slender waist, and took the milk in front of her and poured it into his mouth. Don't say such things in the future. If we really count it, if it weren't for you, we probably wouldn't have the chance to sit here and eat in peace now. Liang Yue Kunsiko Bir Sujima leaned over at this time, filling his glass with milk while whispering, "Alright, anyway, we're all family, so I won't be polite with you guys. By the way, when can we get out of here? I mean, go and see the world you live in now." Rikuminami, who was sitting there rather ungracefully with one foot propped on the seat, holding a glass of ale, seemed a little dazed as she spoke, and his older sister's words obviously spoke to everyone's hearts, so they all looked at Liang Yue. "The system hasn't released any new missions yet, so I guess you'll have to stay in the stronghold world for a while. I'll try my best. I'm already preparing a place for you to stay in the real world, but I estimate that we'll have to wait until after the next trial world, right?" Liang Yue scratched the back of his head unconsciously upon hearing this, and said with some uncertainty, "Liang Yue-kun, don't feel pressured. It's fine to let things take their course. You're already working very hard now." Yuriko Enti comforted him from the side at this time. "Yeah, it's okay. It's actually fine on my side." After eating dinner, accompanied by the brilliant starry sky and Milky Way, everyone sat together and chatted for a while. After a glass of wine, teacher Shizuka, Sayatakaji and others began to cultivate the primal chaos skill. Due to the differences in physical structure, Alwyn's meridians were very weak and she couldn't circulate true energy like the others, but relatively speaking, her muscles and bones were unusually strong and resilient compared to humans, being both light and full of toughness, making her very suitable for practicing the great hammer fist. So this elven princess was now in a state of night cultivation like everyone else. Only Liang Yue had free time, so he walked to the other side of the library rooftop, took out his erhu from the storage space, and began to gently play a soft tune. The music was like water, lingering and sentimental. Leisurely and spreading, it sounded gentle and melodious, yet it could wash away the distracting thoughts in people's hearts. While playing music on the erhu all the girls cultivated was actually their own request, since learning that Liang Yue could produce various effects by playing music on the erhu, Sikobir Sujima and others had a habit of listening to a tune every night. Gradually, everyone also discovered that Liang Yue's music actually had many benefits for their cultivation. It seemed to help them enter a deeper state of meditation more easily and perceptibly. The speed of cultivation would also be greatly accelerated, so, once conditions permitted, this guy would become their background music, accompanying them in their cultivation. Liang Yue didn't have any objections to this. Anyway, it didn't delay anything. He himself could also benefit from playing the erhu. It could increase the skill proficiency, and also soothe and dispel the restless emotions in his heart. This was originally a win-win situation. And after everyone entered a deep state of cultivation, when this guy had earned enough proficiency, he would slowly stop, either using a state of mind to cultivate, or directly climbing into bed for a sleep, with excellent results. Let's sleep tonight. The cultivation during the day is enough. We must know how to combine work and rest. The night was already deep, and a full moon had already risen in the middle of the sky. Liang Yue climbed up from the roof and prepared to return to the small house next door. When passing by the place where the girls were cultivating, Alwyn seemed to have reached the limit of her great hammer fist cultivation and was about to start finishing her practice. Obviously, this girl's current physical fitness was not enough to support her cultivating all night like him, and still be able to be energetic the next morning. Seeing that this girl was about to finish her practice, Liang Yue stopped, and a faint smile unconsciously appeared on the corner of his mouth. "What are you looking at me like that for?" "What do you think?" Looking at the expression on Liang Yue's face that was slowly becoming lewd, Alwyn rolled her eyes. She glanced subconsciously at the places where the others were cultivating, and then said with a soft and glutinous voice, "I just finished cultivating and I'm covered in sweat. I'm going to take a bath. I'll accompany you." In the early morning, When this guy welcomed the morning glow on the horizon, looking refreshed, and brought Alwyn back to the rooftop of the library, Sayatakaji and others had already prepared a table of breakfast. Shizuka Mariko and Sikobir Sujima also went to Eagle's Nest with Rachel as usual to feed the fledgling birds. Liang Yue casually took a bowl of pumpkin porridge from the table, a thick beef cake, and poured it into his mouth in a few strokes. After eating a large egg, he greeted a few people, flashed out of the stronghold world, and was about to prepare to go to school. After a moment of distortion in the scene before him, Liang Yue returned to the second basement floor of his home. In reality, the underground enclosed space at this time was the same as before. The surrounding walls were built with solid stones, without a single gap in the middle, which seemed a little depressing because it was underground. The oxygen content here was naturally a bit low, so under normal circumstances, Liang Yue would not light torches here at this time. The surroundings were pitch black, and everything seemed to be the same as usual. However, the moment Liang Yue appeared in this basement, he keenly noticed something was wrong. A faint smell of fire and smoke. After taking a light breath, Liang Yue immediately made a judgment in his mind, and subconsciously felt something was wrong. With a light tap of his foot, his figure blurred, and he had already arrived at the stairs, frowning slightly as he pushed open the wooden partition above. The next moment, a cloud of smoke and scattered sparks appeared before his eyes. Was I attacked? Or did the house catch fire? As his thoughts flowed, Liang Yue quickly continued to go up along the basement. The surrounding smoke and fire did not cause him any harm, but being in this scorching heat, Liang Yue's original good mood disappeared in an instant. A surge of restlessness and anger was slowly stirring in the depths of his heart. Arriving at the exit of the basement, he gently pushed the iron door above with his hand, and the touch felt very hot. In addition, above the iron door, there seemed to be a pile of messy heavy objects covering it, making a crackling sound of burning and bursting. Seeing this, a flash of annoyance flashed in Liang Yue's eyes. He swung his iron fist, and then slammed it out heavily. Boom! Amidst the splashing smoke and sparks, he slowly stepped into his home above ground. Chapter 204 Continental Hotel. Crack, crack. Just then, accompanied by the groaning, moaning, and collapsing sounds of the walls, a floor slab directly above Liang Yue's head suddenly couldn't withstand the weight after being burned and collapsed with a bang. Liang Yue heard the sound and looked up, his lips pursing in a flash of lightning. Then, with just a wave of his hand, the floor slab was immediately sent flying. Clang! A sound. The concrete slab shattered the already incomplete glass and rolled directly out of the courtyard. Scanning his surroundings, Liang Yue quickly went to his bedroom. However, his sleeping place, which he usually used as a facade, had already disappeared, completely erased from the second floor of the house. The outer walls had collapsed, and the steel bars were twisted and deformed. Looks like this is where the center of the explosion was. Scanning the empty ruins, Liang Yue found a piece of metal debris on the charred floor. If he wasn't mistaken, this should be a fragment from an ammunition explosion, but he clearly remembered that he had not left any ammunition with such power, not even a bullet, in reality. So someone came to attack me. Thinking of this, Liang Yue's lips curled into a smile devoid of any warmth. His gaze shifted, and he subconsciously looked at the position of the bedroom closet, which was now empty, leaving only a patch of dark, molten fabric. The 3 handmade suits I just finished are gone like that. Then, he moved his feet, and in a flash, he came to another room, his eyes lingering on a cabinet that had been completely burned to white ash. And now, the watch Elizabeth bought me is also gone. With each breath, the hot, smoky air entered his nasal cavity and throat, carrying a hint of burning acridity. This caused his mood to become increasingly irritable. Unconsciously, Liang Yue slowly raised his eyebrows, and with a light leap, he crossed the burned-out stairs and arrived in the equally devastated living room. His gaze swept over the display shelf, and the baseball sign by a certain star that Carlson had given him was now burned to only a shell. Not bad, it's all been destroyed cleanly, and it just so happens to clear away my worries. After a glance, Liang Yue's eyes instantly became calm, but deep within them, there seemed to be a hidden storm. Bang! Kicking open the door in front of him, Liang Yue slowly walked out with a thought. He instantly changed into a loose, cyan black robe. This was clothing, or rather equipment, that he had synthesized through his 49 grid toolbox when he had nothing to do. The style was somewhat similar to a Taoist robe and hanfu, a mixed and unmatched product. The fabric of the entire robe was made of dyed cotton and the mutated silk from the Shaolin 5 ancestors' world. Now, his house had obviously been burning for a while, but not a single police officer or firefighter had come to the street in front of his house. As a residential area located in a middle-class boutique community in Brooklyn, this was obviously extremely abnormal. That is to say, the person who attacked me should be very powerful, and even some official personnel have to compromise. With this judgment, Liang Yue immediately flipped his sleeve and took out his mobile phone from his storage space, quickly finding Aunt Liu's number in the phone book. A moment later, the call connected. Hello, Aunt Liu. Liang Yue, is that you? Are you okay? That's great, Aunt Liu. What's wrong with you? Your voice sounds very weak. Are you sick? Well, I'm not doing very well right now. Then I'll come see you right now. Where are you? Aunt Liu, I'm at the hospital. Hospital? Is it the one you run? Yes, okay, I'll come over right now. After hanging up the phone, Liang Yu's face suddenly became gloomy, and he subconsciously looked at the location of the garage. It had now completely collapsed, not to mention his Hummer. Even his mother's Beetle was probably in dire straits. Seeing this, Liang Yue subconsciously took a few deep breaths. Then, without saying much, he slowly walked onto the street leading to the road. New York in November had already begun to enter winter, so the morning sun had just risen, and the streets of the city still seemed somewhat dim. Liang Yu's footsteps seemed very light, like an ordinary person jogging and exercising by the roadside. But a faint murderous aura was permeating his body at this moment, causing his robes to flutter and his hair to surge in his heart. A storm was brewing. Patches of dark clouds had already begun to gather and take shape there, and strands of electricity were surging, eagerly awaiting an outburst. XX hospital, the one in the Collin block. Yes. After hailing a taxi, Liang Yue sat in the back seat, placed his phone aside, and sat there in silence. The driver in the front was an old man with a full head of gray hair. Seeing that he seemed to be in a bad mood, he didn't bother him, but turned on the radio and played a soothing American country ballad. Perhaps he wanted to ease the guy's emotions. Unfortunately, Liang Yue couldn't hear it at all at this time. The restlessness in his eyes became more and more obvious with the passage of time. With a thought, the system store instantly appeared before his eyes. Looking at the pair of pistols on the light curtain, priced at a full 5,000 points, the guy clicked to buy without hesitation. Buzz buzz buzz. A vibration rang at this moment. Liang Yue picked up the phone next to him and glanced at the number on the screen. As expected, it was Elizabeth. Hello, Liang Yue. Are you okay? I'm fine, but my aunt seems to be injured. I'm on my way to see her now. Oh, I'm sorry, Liang Yue. I shouldn't have exposed you at that party in the first place. Otherwise it's okay, Ellie. You did the right thing, and I'm not that invisible. But from what you just said, do you know something? Yes, Liang Yue, I know who did it. But can you please calm down and let me handle this? Tell me his identity information, please. Liang Yue, I will make sure this gets a satisfactory result. Please believe me, the other party's identity is not simple. Can't you say it? Don't be like this. Calm down a bit. Forget it. I won't make things difficult for you. Don't worry about this. After hanging up the phone, Liang Yue felt even more agitated. Sitting in the back seat of the car, he was like a giant dragon about to explode. Even heavy breathing could not suppress the boiling of the blood in his body. In order not to do anything extreme in the taxi in front of him, Liang Yue had no choice but to open a small space channel in front of him with a thought. The other side was connected to a bamboo forest in the Stronghold world. In an instant, a large amount of highly oxygenated air filled with the fragrance of bamboo leaves rushed towards his face. The fresh natural atmosphere was refreshing, as if it had a soothing and broad magic power. Liang Yue closed his eyes slightly and began to immerse himself in it. Only then did he slowly calm down. Buzz buzz buzz. At this moment, another vibration rang beside him. Liang Yue reached out and saw that it was Tony Stark calling. Hello, hey kid. Are you okay? I'm fine, Mr. Stark. Why are you calling? Oh, of course, I'm calling to confirm whether my partner is still alive. If you die, then the agreement we signed before will naturally no longer need to be fulfilled. I have to say, the plan you gave me is indeed feasible. I have already simulated and verified it in the laboratory, and now I am about to let go and do it. On this point, I have to thank you, kid. Although this is a business, to some extent, you did save my life. Although, this plan originally belonged to Stark Group's property. Okay, Tony, I wish you success soon. Also, from what you just said, I seem to have heard something. How much do you know about the bombing of my house? Ever since you became my partner, I have been paying attention to you. But I have been busy with experiments recently, and I haven't had time to take care of these things. Just last night, I heard that someone put a bounty on you at the Continental Hotel, and I wanted to call and ask, but I couldn't get through. Hey kid, your phone seems to be harder to get through than mine. Thank you, Tony. You said that Continental Hotel. Liang Yue paused at this point. His eyes flickered a few times, and then he continued with a bit of unexpected amusement. Wouldn't it be a killer organization? How about it, kid? Are you scared? Do you want to come over and seek the protection of the great Mr. Stark? Don't worry, My fee is not expensive, just give me a few more bottles of that ancient fruit wine. With someone like Tony Stark, applying some pressure with a phone call will naturally cause the employer behind the scenes to withdraw the bounty. Feeling Tony Stark's smug tone on the other end of the phone, Liang Yue suddenly curved his lips, outlining a cruel smile on his face. Thank you, Tony. I will bring you the wine you want when we meet later. As for protection, there's no need. I can handle my own affairs. You're talking big. The Continental Hotel is actually backed by a huge organization. They are not easy to mess with. Only big shots like Mr. Stark, who stand at the top, can have an impact on them. Thank you, Tony. I forgot to tell you, actually, I'm even harder to mess with. Chapter 205 Eternal Snow and Frost. After handing a crisp $100 bill to the driver, Liang Yue hurriedly entered the hospital. The hospital run by Aunt Liu was located by the seaside of a peninsula, with a large area and excellent facilities and environment. With the help of some mysterious capital, the medical resources and the professional level of the staff were also quite superb. However, one thing was quite criticized, especially by many non-Chinese groups. That was, more than 90% of the medical and nursing staff in this hospital were Chinese or of Chinese descent. Moreover, it maintained close ties with various medical institutions in China, and batches of domestic professional experts would often come to give lectures or lead internships. It also made use of the advanced medical equipment and corresponding laboratories in the United States to conduct some cutting-edge research. Therefore, some organizations and social groups with obvious racist tendencies often ran to the outside of the hospital to protest with signs. Fortunately, the medical level of Aunt Liu's hospital was really excellent, and the Chinese were generally more diligent in their work. So, this seaside hospital had always had a good reputation in the New York industry, and the professional ethics of its practitioners were even more admirable. Enjoying a very high reputation, although the number of visits was limited, Liang Yue was still somewhat well known in this hospital. So, after a while, led by a head nurse named Lu Yao, Liang Yue quickly arrived at Aunt Liu's ward. Aunt Liu, where did you get hurt? Looking at Aunt Liu, whose upper body was wrapped in bandages and one arm was hanging on an iron frame, yet still smiling peacefully at him, Liang Yue suddenly felt a twitch in his heart, and the blood in his body began to surge rapidly, his hair fluttering. She took 3 bullets in total, 2 in the arm, which is not a big deal, and 1 shot penetrated the stomach, which is a bit troublesome. It has been sutured now, and the bullet has been taken out, but she will have to rest for a month or 2 anyway, and it will take longer to recover completely, the head nurse on the side explained to him while checking Aunt Liu's injuries with a blank expression. After glancing at Liang Yue, whose aura was fluctuating wildly at this time, a few surprised expressions suddenly appeared on her originally indifferent face. It's okay, it's good that you're okay. I was so worried when I heard that your house was bombed. If something happened to you, I wouldn't know how to explain it to your mother. Aunt Liu's voice was very soft at this time, and her tone revealed a sense of weakness, a feeling of being weak and powerless. Obviously, the damage to the internal organs had a great impact on her. Don't worry, Aunt Liu, with me here, you will get better soon. Saying that, Liang Yue suddenly turned his hand over and took out a rhombus-shaped glass test tube from his storage space. Inside was a bright red liquid, which looked extraordinarily crystal clear under the sunlight outside the window. This was exactly the trophy he had previously obtained from the dungeon, a micro-level key and blood potion in the game. This thing could almost be said to cure all diseases and be omnipotent. As long as there was enough red potion, one could always turn bad luck into good and help players overcome difficulties. However, after thinking about it at this time, Liang Yue finally took out another thing from his storage space. Again, it was gray and looked a bit like ginseng, but it was even more rugged once taken out. A faint fragrance of medicinal herbs immediately filled the entire ward. According to the system's introduction, this medicinal material can not only restore the character's ki and blood value and magic value, but also has the effects of healing and refreshing the mind. What is ki and blood value, and what does it specifically represent? Liang Yue is currently unclear, so, just relying on a tube of ki and blood potion alone, he was not sure whether it could cure Aunt Liu's stomach perforation and gunshot wound, but this 10,000-year snow frost thing was definitely no problem. Otherwise, wouldn't the system's evaluation of it be in vain? Come, Aunt Liu, you take this medicine, and you will get better soon. As Liang Yue spoke, he was about to bring the medicine to Aunt Liu's mouth, but was stopped by the head nurse on the side. Then, Lu Yao stretched out a hand that was a little too white, pinched a whisker from the 10,000-year snow frost with her fingernails, and put it into her mouth before she could chew it twice. The head nurse immediately covered her mouth, and then widened her eyes full of shock. Then, Her hand that was covering her small mouth actually began to turn rosy at a speed visible to the naked eye after a long while, under the gaze of Liang Yue and Aunt Liu. The woman finally opened her mouth. This medicine is very powerful and can heal the director's injuries, but I suggest that it is best to eat it section by section. Oh, then you do it. This thing is for Aunt Liu to heal her injuries. Saying that, Liang Yue handed the medicine in his hand to the head nurse. He believed that this professional could maximize the effect of the 10,000-year snow frost even if Aunt Liu and the others didn't use it all in the end, and planned to keep some roots to take back for research or trial planting. It didn't matter regarding this point. Liang Yue had already asked the system before, and the answer he got was that it could not be planted. Moreover, he also hoped that Aunt Liu and her team could research something and then teach him. Liang Yue, this medicine must be very expensive, right? Looking at Liu Yao, who was busy cutting it optimally, Aunt Liu asked with a smile while lying on the bed. It's okay, although there aren't many of these things, there are still 10 or 8 of them. Alright, speaking of this, Liang Yue turned his hand over again and took out 3 bottles of ancient fruit wine from the storage space and placed them on the bedside table next to him, and then continued. This wine is also a good thing. It can be used to nourish the body, eliminate toxins, and also purify some strange curses. After your stomach gets better, drink a little when you have nothing to do. This way, Aunt Liu, your body will recover quickly. Really? Of course. Wasn't Tony Stark poisoned with heavy metals before? Because of the reactor in his chest, after drinking my wine, his toxins were immediately removed. However, because he still has that reactor, the toxins will continue to erode his body after a while. You definitely don't have as much trouble as him here. Cough. It seems that you have grown a lot in these short 6 months. Before she could finish speaking, the head nurse had already brought a medicine whisker to Aunt Liu's mouth, who knew that after just chewing it a few times in her mouth, Aunt Liu immediately covered her mouth quickly with her intact palm, just like the head nurse next to her, and even covered her nose later. What is this doing? Seeing this, Liang Yue subconsciously looked at the head nurse next to him and asked, the effect of your medicine comes too quickly, and the effect is also good. Covering your mouth is to prevent the medicinal effect from escaping from your mouth. Oh, then just now, Sister Liu Yao, your hand, is that a sequelae of practicing iron sand palm? I didn't expect it to be cured by one of your medicine whiskers. I see. Can your wine really detoxify? Yes. What's wrong? Could it be that you practiced the iron sand palm and also practiced iron poison into your palm? Probably. After saying that, the young head nurse actually took a bottle of wine from the bedside table without any politeness, and took 2 wine glasses from the cabinet next to her. After opening the lid, she poured 2 glasses, and then picked up one of them and began to sip it slowly on the side. Sister, I gave this to Aunt Liu to nourish her body. I'm testing the medicine. Yao Yao is my niece, and she grew up with me since she was a child, so sometimes, this girl is a little casual. After being nourished by a medicine whisker, Aunt Liu's complexion had become much better at this time, and even the voice of her speech began to become energetic. Obviously, the effect of this 10,000-year snow frost far exceeded Liang Yue's expectations. If it were him who used it himself, he would probably swallow the whole plant into his mouth and chew it. The effect would be good, but it would be difficult to tell where it was good. So you are Aunt Liu's relative, then there must be no problem. By the way, Aunt Liu, the injuries on your body were from an assassin's attack last night, right? Chapter 206 Reasons for Taking Action. To the Continental Hotel. Which Continental Hotel are you referring to? Click this one. Okay. I understand, sir. After leaving the hospital, Liang Yue looked at the sky outside, where the sun was already high in the middle of the day. He stood at the entrance and stretched his limbs immediately. He hailed a taxi waiting on the side, intending to go straight to that legendary place, a gathering point for assassins from all over the world, existing in the form of a chain hotel. Who knew that the sloppy driver in the front seat might have thought he looked a bit young after glancing at him through the rearview mirror? A look of slight disdain appeared on his pockmarked face, his words carrying a hint of doubt. However, when he saw Liang Yue pull out a gun and point it directly at the back of his head, he immediately cowered. With a slam on the accelerator, the taxi sped off on the road. Last night, Aunt Liu was indeed attacked by assassins at home. Caught off guard, she was immediately shot 3 times, ending up in the state she was in on the hospital bed. However, Aunt Liu was clearly not a simple person to be able to gain a foothold in New York, this international metropolis, as a Chinese person, and to continuously build bridges for cooperation between domestic experts in the U.S. and local American institutions. Under such circumstances, no one would believe that Aunt Liu didn't have the backing of the Chinese government. In fact, the protective forces around Aunt Liu, including her own martial prowess, were not low, but afterward, she inevitably suffered serious injuries. However, Liang Yue was very grateful for this. At least Aunt Liu was only injured, although the injury was not light. The assassin did not hide her head when firing, which left him the opportunity to save her. However, Liang Yue felt very guilty about this matter through the 2 phone calls from Elizabeth and Tony Stark, one after the other. He had now roughly deduced the cause and effect of this matter if he guessed correctly. The connection should be that after Elizabeth announced that he was her boyfriend in front of a group of celebrities at the Stark Industries opening party, someone began to harbor resentment towards him. Then, through the Continental Hotel, an organization of assassin alliances, they put a bounty on him. And Aunt Liu was just incidentally implicated based on his speculation. The person or people who put a bounty on him may just be his rivals in love. Because they admired Elizabeth and were jealous that he could win the heart of the blonde beauty, they were consumed by jealousy after discovering that Liang Yue seemed to be just an unknown Chinese boy. They became even more angry and emboldened, directly hiring assassins through the Continental Hotel's intermediary to kill him and silence him. As a result, Aunt Liu, an elder who had a close relationship with Liang Yue, also suffered. In addition, the other party was also very likely to be someone who was familiar with Elizabeth, and the relationship should be relatively close. Otherwise, Elizabeth would not have called earlier, wanting to be a peacemaker after confirming his safety after figuring out a connection. Liang Yue couldn't help but feel a pang of pain at this time, and there was an unspeakable sense of absurdity in his heart. After all, the current judgment based on facts is very different from what he had imagined about the person who attacked him at the first moment after the attack. Originally, after Liang Yue returned to reality, his first reaction when he noticed that the house had been bombed was that Hydra was sending people to deal with him, but now he realized that he really overestimated himself. However, in this way, the fact that the police, fire brigade, and other institutions did not appear when his house was destroyed can also be barely explained. The Continental Hotel actually represents an interface in the gray area hidden beneath the surface society. The people who hang out there have their own set of rules, and the power is huge. It is almost an alliance of all figures who take the assassin route. They have professional cleaning teams, guards, corpse collectors, and even a monetary system behind them. There are many officials backing them up, and their existence is tacitly approved by official organizations to some extent. People who have joined this system do not seem to be bound by some legal provisions in ordinary human society. Therefore, when they are carrying out assassination and sabotage missions, as long as they do not involve important figures or cause a considerable degree of chaos, the national violent organs will generally turn a blind eye, and will not even bother with the task of clearing the scene. Obviously, this time they regarded Liang Yue as an ordinary Chinese exchange student who had stumbled upon good luck, and did not investigate clearly who they had offended. In short, whoever did it will pay the price. After paying the fare, Liang Yue opened the door and got out of the car. Looking up, the Continental Hotel in front of him was almost the same as he had imagined, or rather, as he remembered it. Located in the angled zone of the triangular block, the high steps lead straight to the street. The elegant and clean wooden doors and lamps, and 2 hotel staff members in red welcoming uniforms, are standing on both sides of the wooden door. There is also a middle-aged doorman standing under the steps, who seems to be responsible for opening the car door for guests and providing parking services, but after seeing Liang Yue arriving in a taxi, he ignored him. Well, this seems to be taken for granted. He leisurely stepped onto the steps of the hotel and then pushed the door open. Facing him was a marble front desk placed far away on the opposite side. Between the hotel entrance and the front desk, there were comfortable sofas and tables and chairs. At this time, there were more than a dozen men and women dressed very exquisitely sitting among them, some alone, holding newspapers in their hands, and some gathered in 2s and 3s, looking like they were having a pleasant conversation. At first glance, this scene seemed to be not much different from an ordinary hotel. Liang Yue walked among them, not looking sideways, but through his keen hearing, he could also hear some scattered information from these people's quiet conversations. "Hey buddy, I heard you did a big job recently, and you got over $1 million for killing one person." "That's right. It was a revenge from an abandoned mistress. I heard that the person you killed was a government official." "Are you okay acting so recklessly?" "That official abandoned his mistress because he was about to lose power and wanted to run abroad. I also specifically asked someone about this matter. It seems that a more powerful person wants to get rid of him." "Wow, you're so lucky, buddy. Have you heard John Wick is back in the game again? Just the other day, he took action and wiped out his old boss, that Russian gangster. There were hardly any people left in the entire gang." "Yes, I heard that the guy did it for a dog. which seemed to be a gift his wife left him before she died. Oh, poor John Wick. I guess he may be back in the Continental Hotel soon. I think so too. Good afternoon, sir. Can I help you with anything? Behind the counter, a black bald man in a suit was looking at Liang Yue in front of him with a smile. Wearing a pair of glasses. Just last night, my house was bombed. My car, clothes, neighbors' gifts, and the watch my girlfriend gave me were all destroyed in the attack. My relatives were seriously injured in this attack, so I want to know the identities of the people who attacked me and the people who hired them behind the scenes. Liang Yue was standing there with his hands down, also smiling as he asked the other party. As soon as these words came out, the hotel, which had originally seemed a bit noisy and bustling with people, suddenly became quiet immediately. A burst of laughter rang out in the field, and everyone in the lobby looked over. Chapter 207. A life-loving old man. The bald black man was clearly surprised by Liang Yue's request, but after a moment of contemplation, he maintained his smile and replied, "I'm sorry, sir, our hotel doesn't offer that kind of service. I'm not in a good mood right now, but I can say it again. I want to know the identities of those who attacked me, and the person who hired them behind the scenes." Liang Yue's heart was calm, and he still wore a faint smile on his face, but that didn't mean he had successfully suppressed the restlessness in his heart. On the contrary, he had already entered a certain state, one where he was about to lash out and kill whenever this moment arrived. Liang Yue would appear particularly calm because his entire mind was focused on how to deal with a group of assassins around him. Imperceptibly, a faint murderous intent began to permeate around him. The corners of his clothes fluttered, and his hair danced, making him seem somewhat ethereal. The laughter was mixed with hints of mockery, joy, and teasing. It was as if this was the funniest thing they had ever heard in their lives. However, relatively speaking, the bald black man opposite him had already sensed Liang Yue's unease, and his expression began to turn cautious the moment someone spoke. Nevertheless, after hearing Liang Yue's words, he still said solemnly, "I am very sorry, sir, our hotel doesn't have this kind of swish." Before he could finish speaking, Liang Yue instantly drew his twin swords. Two bright crescent arcs of light instantly danced in the air. However, the target was not the black man in front of him. Liang Yue retreated swiftly like a ghost, reaching the hotel entrance in the blink of an eye. The chilling moon slashes and the sound of swords echoing throughout the lobby. The sword light was like frost. The swords hung like thunder, shaking people's minds and making them forget themselves. By the time he returned to the front of the counter, the entire process hadn't even taken a second. Swish, swish, swish. Immediately afterward, more than a dozen heads flew into the air, and the unbridled splashing blood instantly stained the entire lobby, which had originally been warm and elegant, with a layer of fierce intent. However, although Liang Yue was killing, he was selective, only taking out those assassins who had mocked him earlier. Besides these people, there were still a few who had remained unmoved and watched the situation unfold. However, at this moment, they were stunned by the sudden change. Amidst the blood spurting all around, Liang Yue looked calmly at the bald black man opposite him, his tone unwavering. "You'd better think carefully before answering my question." Upon seeing this, the black man behind the counter took a deep breath, then barely suppressed the shock in his eyes and said, "Sir, our hotel indeed doesn't have this kind of service, nor does it have this kind of authority, but I can convey your request to our boss, and he will make the decision." After speaking, and seeing Liang Yue nod, the bald man hesitantly picked up the old-fashioned rotary dial telephone and began a conversation with someone on the other end. After a moment, once the negotiation was complete, the bald black man extended his hand to Liang Yue, making a gesture of invitation, signaling him to follow. A friendly reminder, "Sir, our Continental Hotel doesn't allow fighting, let alone tolerate murder within the hotel premises. Your actions just now have seriously violated our industry's rules. Unless your strength can pacify the Council of the Continental Hotel Alliance, you may be in a state of being wanted and hunted for a long time to come." On the way, the black man leading the way ahead barely managed to calm down. As for the purpose of his words, it was difficult to tell whether it was a friendly reminder or a threat. However, Liang Yue didn't care at all and said directly, "Your rules are none of my business. I'm looking forward to you giving me some surprises, just don't regret it when the time comes." After a while, Liang Yue followed the man to the top floor of the hotel. Pushing open a pair of wooden doors revealed a very pretentious scene design. There was a garden, a fountain, sculptures, and a fireplace. Yes, even though it was outdoors, and on the roof of a high-rise building where the cold wind was howling, the owner of this hotel still built a fireplace directly opposite the door. At this moment, firewood was burning in the stove, and a curly-haired man who had just entered old age was sitting beside it, holding a square glass in his hand. In addition, an unexpected figure was also sitting beside him. "Elizabeth? What are you doing here? Looking at the beautiful figure with a slightly furrowed brow, Liang Yue was surprised, but after thinking about it, he didn't find it strange. It seems that the person who put a bounty on me here has a rather unusual relationship with you. Seeing Liang Yue appear, the blonde girl who had been sitting sideways immediately stood up and walked quickly towards him. A delicate face still carried a hint of sadness and irritability. Liang Yue, please stop making trouble, okay? Making trouble. Do you think my actions to avenge myself and Liu are just making trouble? Hearing this, Liang Yue looked helplessly at Elizabeth in front of him, then moved aside and walked past her. However, just as the two were about to pass each other, Liang Yue was grabbed by the arm by the woman. What I mean is, stop for now. I can guarantee you that this matter will be resolved satisfactorily, okay? When she spoke, Elizabeth's gaze towards him already carried a hint of pleading. Seeing this, Liang Yue narrowed his eyes, and his mood suddenly became complicated, but then his heart was filled with anger. Unconsciously, a hot breath slowly came out of his nostrils. Looking at the woman, his expression changed several times before he replied in a stiff tone, okay, from now on, you have 3 days. After 3 days, I want to see that person's 2 hands placed in front of me, but he's only 16 years old, and he's grown up with me since he was a child. He's just a little willful and naughty. Can't you spare him this time? Everyone has to pay the price for what they do. I think this lesson will be enough for him to benefit from for a lifetime. After speaking, Liang Yue shook off Elizabeth's hand, took a deep breath, and then slowly came to the side of the curly-haired old man. When the other party saw him coming, he quickly stood up from his seat and took the initiative to extend his hand to him. Seeing this, Liang Yue shook hands with him indifferently. Hello, Mr. Liang Yue. I never knew that a young talent like you would appear in New York City. To be honest, if you had appeared earlier, maybe these things wouldn't have happened. Of course, this can only be blamed on our intelligence department's failure. Hello, I presume you are the owner of this hotel. I'll be blunt, can you give me what I want? Of course. For the sake of my own little life, I will hand over the information you need without any psychological burden. As he spoke, a tall, strong, sunglasses-wearing bald man walked in from the outside, holding a stack of A4 papers that looked freshly printed. They still emitted a faint smell of ink. This is what you want, Mr. Liang Yue, including some information about the employer who put a bounty on you, as well as the industries under his name, etc. In addition, there is the information of the people who attacked you and Ms. Liu last night, but as far as I know, the person who attacked Ms. Liu has already been killed by her on the spot, so what's useful to you now should only be these 2 pieces of information. Although this was also violating the so-called rules, the owner of this New York Continental Hotel did not show any psychological burden at this time. After handing over the information to him, he even thoughtfully gave him a real-time explanation. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Liang Yue was very satisfied with the attitude shown by the person in front of him and quickly shifted his attention to the information in his hand. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the boss of the New York Continental Hotel poured a mouthful of wine into his mouth and spoke again. My name is Winston, Mr. Liang Yue. You can call me that. In addition, I have something else to tell you, Mr. Liang Yue, which is about the bounty that was issued against you. It has now been cancelled by our Continental Hotel Alliance. But in view of your previous actions of killing people in the hotel, it has in fact violated the rules of our industry. Therefore, the Council of our Continental Hotel Alliance may take action against you at any time. Thank you for your reminder, Mr. Winston. I look forward to it. Goodbye. Hearing this, Liang Yue finally raised his head from the papers in his hand and said goodbye to the other party. Goodbye, Mr. Liang Yue. Turning back with the information in his hand, Elizabeth was still standing there. That figure that should have been elegant was now carrying a hint of listlessness. Seeing this, Liang Yue patted the blonde girl's butt with the information in his hand, then walked and said, if you're going back to school, please help me ask for leave. I don't think I'll have time to go back to school these days. Chapter 208 Big White Drug Set. Go to Leonard's Gun and Ammunition Store in Block 3 of Flamingo Home. This is it. Those guys who bombed my house actually run a gun shop together? Hell, it would have been great if you had shown up earlier. Even a month ago. Now that I have the penetrator, I don't really need guns and ammunition for the time being, right? But it's good to get some just in case. After all, it's better to be prepared. Why aren't you starting the engine? Looking at the taxi driver next to him, dressed in a slightly wrinkled suit, with his hair combed meticulously, but not starting the car after arriving at the destination, Liang Yue asked with some surprise, excuse me, are you Mr. Liang Yue? After hearing his words, the elderly driver, whose left hand seemed to be a bit disabled, asked him a question that didn't answer his question. Yes, how did you know? We don't seem to know each other, do we? Hearing this, Liang Yu's curiosity grew even stronger. Are you sure you are Liang Yue, who was previously wanted by the Continental Hotel? Yes, then please get out of the car now. My taxi will not carry you. Oh? Why is that? Because I am a taxi driver affiliated with the Continental Hotel Alliance. Just now, although the Continental Hotel has revoked the bounty on you, the High Table has also issued a new order at the same time. That is, all resources under the Continental Hotel will no longer be open to you. As members of the Alliance, we must abide by the rules. Oh. I understand. You mean that from the moment the order was issued, we were already enemies? You can understand it that way. You didn't understand what I meant. I'm saying from the very beginning, we were already enemies, right? Liang Yue twitched a corner of his mouth, his eyes narrowed slightly, and a hint of danger flashed in his eyes as he looked at the stubborn driver. Seeing his appearance, the driver was stunned for a moment, and then became nervous, hesitating for a while before stammering. I originally thought that someone like you, a master who can be treated differently by the Alliance, would generally not bother to argue with small fries like us. You mean the demeanor of the master, right? Yes, it's okay. I'm still young now, and I'm still in high school. I'll learn slowly in the future. Speaking of, since we are enemies now, then sitting in the enemy's taxi, can I not pay? This, aren't you going to drive me right now? Don't you want to live? As Liang Yue spoke, with a flip of his hand, a brand new infinite ammo penetrator was already pressed against the other person's temple. Okay, sir. The driver didn't say anything else at this time, and directly stepped on the accelerator to the end. With a sound, the taxi rushed out quickly. Damn it, you don't appreciate a toast. You only appreciate a forfeit. Squeak. We're here, sir. Leonard's gun and ammunition store you mentioned is in front, behind that barbershop. Along with a violent sound of tires rubbing, the taxi stopped at one end of a slightly dilapidated commercial district. There were hardly any pedestrians on the street, which seemed very desolate this time. He really didn't pay, ignoring the driver who was rapidly turning around and fleeing. After putting the information in his hand into the storage space, Liang Yue slowly walked forward. After a while, he arrived in front of the gun store. Looking inside through the glass door, he saw that the store didn't seem to have much business at this time. Three people who looked exactly like the photos in the information were sitting around a small table playing poker, with several beer bottles placed under their feet. Each of them looked red-faced, obviously a little tipsy. Seeing this, Liang Yue didn't hesitate at all. With a flip of his hand, the penetrator dual guns were already in his palms. Puff, puff, puff. Raising his hand and aiming at the three people at the glass door, he fired 3 shots at the same time. The 3 round heads inside were instantly blown to pieces. Okay, now that's considered revenge. Looking at the 3 assassins inside who were already dead, Liang Yue curled his lips and thought that there was no challenge at all in this revenge. Pushing the door open, with a thought, Liang Yue had already changed into a dirty training suit that hadn't had time to be washed. Stepping on the blood and debris all over the floor, he began to ransack the small gun store in front of him. After about 10 minutes, after searching the store inside and out, he finally finished the work of extracting the remaining value with some reluctance. Then, Liang Yue carried a bucket of gasoline and wandered around every corner of the store. He also took a lighter from the table where the 3 nameless people were playing cards. Click, click. The gun store, which was already empty, was instantly engulfed in a sea of fire. You bombed my house last night, and now I'm burning your store. It can be considered as giving you a place to stay in the afterlife. Accompanied by the roaring flames, Liang Yue slowly walked out of the store, and with a thought, he changed back into his original cyan black robe. After standing at the door for a while, identifying the general direction, he walked towards the Brooklyn area. A great white dog suit, a limited edition fashion suit from the DNF world. After wearing it, you can transform into a standing great white dog. In addition to increasing a small amount of attributes, it also has a good camouflage effect. This suit is a special item. Light is nothing in itself. After wearing it, it does not affect movement, does not block vision, does not occupy the equipment bar, does not occupy weight, and cannot be damaged. The selling price is 3,000 points. 2 days later, inside the top floor presidential suite of a luxury hotel, Liang Yue was wearing his newly bought fashion suit, standing in front of the full-length mirror, twisting from side to side, wantonly swaying himself, but he couldn't figure out the principle of this thing on his body. Obviously, it feels furry and has an excellent touch, but such a thick suit doesn't even have the most basic warmth effect when he wears it. Liang Yue was completely naked at this time, but because of this fashion suit covering his body, the whole person looked like a big white dog doll, which was particularly delicate and cute. This feeling made him a little contradictory and short. This fashion suit created by the system has a tangible touch and can bring him some extra attributes, but Liang Yue himself cannot treat this fashion suit as clothing or equipment. In short, its camouflage effect is far greater than any other existing attribute. It only changes my appearance. Chapter 209 The Art of Negotiation. Buzz buzz buzz. Hello Aunt Liu? Yeah, I'm at the hotel. Out for a stroll? Skipping school? No way, I didn't go anywhere. At most I just took a walk downstairs. Oh, the principal already called you, and you said I was in the hospital because I wasn't feeling well. Howdy, thank you. Yeah, got it. Don't worry, just tell me what's going on, I'm listening. Huh? Don't dwell on revenge anymore? Why? The other side has already given enough compensation? So what? No Aunt Liu, is someone putting pressure on you from within the country? Really not? Just that the compensation is in place? But after all, you're the one who suffered. Even with me? Even with me, you still suffered. Have you forgotten how weak you were lying in bed before? Hey. We are a great nation of China, and Britannia is almost dying. Do we lack their things? What compensation can they give us? Engine technology doesn't that still mean someone in the country is putting pressure on you? Oh, voluntary, your family plans to invest in a factory in China using this technology. Then what about your matter? Is it really just going to be settled like this? Chop off hands? How did you know I wanted to chop off people's hands? I just want to teach the people behind them a lesson. If they have the ability, let them grow another pair. Me? I'm not angry, aren't I just venting your anger? Yes, okay, my condition is that they rebuild my house for me. Okay, you've already said that, why am I still dwelling on it? Yeah, that's it. Okay, goodbye Aunt Liu, I'll go back to school in a couple of days. A soft sound after hanging up the phone. Liang Yue then threw the phone onto the bed, and then looked out the window with his hands on his waist, his face full of complex colors, faintly with a hint of pain. Knock knock. After about 5 or 6 minutes, the door was knocked on. Liang Yue went over to open the door and saw that the person who came was, as expected, Elizabeth. At this time, this golden-haired girl had a face full of apology, her expression vaguely carrying a hint of timidity, and she was holding a small gift box in her hand. However, the moment this woman saw Liang Yue, the expression on her face suddenly changed. And then she burst out laughing. What are you laughing at? Seeing this, Liang Yue asked a little strangely. Prepared for me. In just an instant, Elizabeth's delicate little face became radiant with smiles, and all her original melancholy disappeared. After saying that, this golden-haired girl casually touched Liang Yue's chest, and then swaggered into the room. Okay, at this time, he was still wearing that big white drug suit, chubby and furry all over, looking exceptionally cute and charming. Only the drug head, because he was not used to making phone calls just now, was put into the storage space by him. This wasn't prepared for you. This is a set of magical equipment. I was just trying it on before. Seeing that this girl had misunderstood, Liang Yue quickly explained after closing the door. Really? Hearing this, Elizabeth turned her head and looked at him with a pair of smiling eyes. Of course, there is another one of this outfit. As he said that, Liang Yue suddenly moved his mind, and a huge dog head instantly covered his head, the bright red tongue constantly sticking out of the dog's mouth, perfectly integrated with his suit below the neck, without seeing any gaps at first glance. It looked like a standing salmon, yet wow, so cute. Where did you get it? Seeing this, Elizabeth in front of her immediately rushed into his arms, a look of intoxicating comfort on her face, and one hand was still constantly stroking the details of this white drug suit. Finally, she stopped on the pair of pointed ears. I won't tell you. Saying that, Liang Yue threw this golden-haired girl onto the bed, and then he also lay on top of her, and then used the simulated tongue on the dog's head to constantly tease her face. Elizabeth dodged with a smile, but in the end she couldn't escape, and could only lie there with her eyes closed. After a long while, after the two of them were tired of being together, they finally began to gradually calm down. Liang Yue once again threw the white dog's head into the storage space, and then quietly looked at the golden-haired girl under him, his eyes showing a bit of complexity. How is it? Are you satisfied with my handling this time? Elizabeth also opened her eyes at this time, hugged his neck with both hands and asked, It's just my Aunt Liu, who cares about the country and unconsciously puts too much burden on herself, almost putting her personal safety aside. Saying that, Liang Yue sat up from the bed, and his expression began to become a little serious. Seeing this, the golden-haired girl under him continued to hug his neck and also sat up at the same time. The gift that had been held in her hand was also handed to him at this time. Yet, this is for you. What is this? Didn't you always say in front of others that the watch your girlfriend gave you was blown up? This new watch is for you. Oh, this is not bad. Looking at the delicate light revealed under the open box cover, Liang Yue knew almost without thinking that the watch this woman had brought now must be more expensive than the previous one in terms of workmanship. It also looks more exquisite and sophisticated in terms of gorgeousness. It can only be said to be roughly equivalent to the one that was destroyed before, without any vulgar diamond inlay, only some differences in the details at first glance. It has a feeling of not only being noble. However, even so, this still couldn't dispel this guy's doubts about why these luxury goods could be sold so expensively. However, since it had already been bought, Liang Yue naturally wouldn't refuse, so he stretched out a furry dog paw to Elizabeth. Looking at the white dog coat that was still draped over his body, he quickly moved his mind and put it into the storage space in an instant. Liang Yue's strong upper body was exposed to Elizabeth's eyes like this. Seeing this, the golden-haired girl who was originally hugging his neck unconsciously looked over, and after a while, she became a little breathless after glancing at the neat abdominal muscles around his waist. This woman moved backward a little uncomfortably, wanting to leave, but then, she was grabbed back by Liang Yue. Help me put it on. Oh, hearing this, Elizabeth didn't resist anything, just sat on his lap, took out the watch from the box, and put it around his left wrist. Tell me, why is the reaction from your Britannia side so weak this time? I thought that even for the sake of the Empire's face, you should send a strong unit over to confront me head on. Liang Yue's eyes became a little erratic at this time, looking at the slowly setting sun outside the window, his tone also carrying a bit of incomprehension. You're thinking too much? We don't have any strong units, Elizabeth replied with a faint smile on her face. How can you not have them, such as those magicians, or wizards or something? Hearing this woman's words, Liang Yue immediately lowered his eyes, touched her golden hair and said, stop joking. There are no strange things in this world. You are the most special person I have ever met. This golden-haired girl seemed very honest at this time, only picking some nice things to say. Aren't you a witch? As soon as Liang Yue's words fell, Elizabeth, who was originally half lying in his arms and putting on a watch for him, immediately stopped moving. Then, this woman turned her head, looked at Liang Yue's serious expression, and gradually lowered her head. After a long while, she bit her lip and said, how did you know? I always knew. When was it? It was not long after we met. Then what else do you know? Well, I also know that you seem to have a talent that can copy some of my abilities. What I can confirm now is that you should have copied 2 abilities from me, one of which is Vitals Vanish, and the other is Full Stomach HP Recovery. I heard that you witches can convert these copying abilities into magic that can be systematically learned. Right, well, what are you going to do? After hearing Liang Yue's almost completely frank words, Elizabeth's mood also dropped to the bottom, and she just lay softly on him, lowering her head. She didn't dare to look directly into his eyes at all. What to do? Just do it, anyway, it doesn't hurt me. You're just copying, not that, cutting. Liang Yue said indifferently at this time. Aren't you angry? You must know that Vitals Vanish, and Full Stomach HP Recovery, these 2 are super rare abilities, although the effects after being converted into magic cannot be compared with the original version, but it is enough to change many things. After hearing his words, this golden-haired girl immediately raised her head, looked at him with a hint of cautious hope, and asked, this is what I allowed? Otherwise, what do you think you could stay by my side for so long? As Liang Yue said, he pressed this woman on the bed again, looking at her seriously faced with his scorching gaze. Elizabeth subconsciously closed her eyes, not daring to face his gaze, and asked in a low voice, then what are you plotting? That depends on what reward you can give me. I'm not ready yet. Some things don't need to be prepared, just bravely accept them. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 210, Magic Heart. Ling. Congratulations, host, for obtaining the buff-type spell Blessing of the Pure Maiden, through a special method, and thus acquiring a fragment of this world's rule energy. Through this energy, the system can synthesize special items for the host, such as Eye of Truth, Aura of Luck, Guardian of the Void, and Heart of Magic, or help the host forcibly break through the shackles of existing martial arts techniques. Alternatively, it can unlock a small portion of the host's own bloodline seal. The host can choose one of these 6 options. Just as Liang Yue was still in a half-dreaming state, a sudden notification sound instantly jolted him awake from his original dazed condition. Opening his eyes, he subconsciously looked around through a layer of curtains. The sky outside was still a hazy darkness, indicating that it was not yet dawn. Elizabeth was lying on his chest, snoring softly, Sleeping soundly, heart of magic? I think I just heard that name. Liang Yue subconsciously scratched his head, muttering to himself, blinking his eyes at the ceiling above. After gradually waking up, Liang Yue hurriedly opened the system panel to check the previous content. After a while, blessing of the pure maiden. There's actually this kind of operation. I didn't expect that the path to unlock my magic started from this little girl. Looking at Elizabeth, who was still fast asleep in his arms, Liang Yue gently stroked her smooth back, a faint smile unconsciously rising on his face. Choose 1 out of 6? Is there even a need to choose? Eye of Truth, Aura of Luck, Guardian of the Void, these sound self-explanatory. Perhaps their inherent uses are significant, but they are not irreplaceable. As for breakthroughs in martial arts realm, I can do that myself, so there's no need to waste the current opportunity. As for the bloodline seal, I am indeed curious about that, but it's not an option I urgently need. Of course, I choose Heart of Magic. I still have 2 skills that need magic to activate. Ling. Host, are you sure you want to synthesize the rule fragments into Heart of Magic? Confirm. Immediately following Liang Yue's words, a mysterious, indescribable power instantly rose within his body as if born out of thin air. It slowly gathered from all corners of his body, slowly rotating, and finally settled in the center of his brow. The whole process seemed slow but was actually fast, without causing any ripples. Even Liang Yue's eyes did not observe any abnormalities outside his body. It seems that even though both involve the use of rule-based power, the synthesis process of the Heart of Magic is still quite different from the scene of the McRules merging with him before. Is that it? That's too hasty. Subconsciously reaching out his finger, he rubbed the center of his brow ridge. At this time, Liang Yue felt as if there was something more in front of his head, but it did not hinder his thoughts. Instead, it invisibly made his mind clearer, but he could not confirm the specific changes yet. Heart of Magic, the original substance of the magic domain, capable of autonomously absorbing and storing magic power. It is currently in a primary state, and its efficiency in absorbing magic power in this world is 10 points per day. At this time, this mere introduction triggered many associations in Liang Yue's mind. However, this was related to the activation and application of some skills, so he had to carefully consider it absorbing and storing magic power. Which means that this thing is actually equivalent to a container. Although it can be used by me, it may not always belong to me. Being able to absorb 10 points of magic power every day, that efficiency is a bit too slow. Calculating it this way, it can only absorb more than 3,000 magic points a year, but I can do a lot of things in a year also. Because of the characteristics of the chaotic origin skill, I can recover 550 points of internal force every second. The Heart of Magic doesn't seem to mention that, does it? However, primary state, which means this thing can also be upgraded, right? System, Ling. Acquiring substances with the same phase attributes can be used to improve the quality of the Heart of Magic. That's okay. Hey, by the way, system, if the magic power in the Heart of Magic is consumed, can it be restored with magic potions? Ling. It can be restored, but the Heart of Magic's daily self-absorption of magic power is equivalent to expanding its own capacity. Magic potions cannot increase the upper limit of the host's total magic power. Also, the absorption rate of 10 points of magic power per day is only for the current world and location coordinates of the host. The energy level and activity in different worlds will affect this. I knew it. That's more reasonable. Otherwise, 10 points a day, that speed is too slow. After receiving the system's answer, Liang Yue finally breathed a sigh of relief and immediately planned his magic expansion plan. Speaking of the prototype of the base world is Mech, and Mech is originally a place where magic operations exist, so the magic level there should be high, right? However, when choosing the world upgrade type before, I seem to have given up the magic route and chose martial arts. This shouldn't have too much impact, right? It doesn't matter, isn't there still a dungeon? The DNF world is originally a treasure trove of magic. By the way, on Earth in this real world, I heard that there are also several magic nodes, one of which is in New York. Which street is that magic temple located on? I can't remember clearly. Also, that meditation technique that Gandalf gave me should also help gather magic, right? Just like that, muttering to himself until dawn, Liang Yue finally waited for the first magic point in his life. The feeling was as if a tangible vitality had been injected into his mind, making him a little excited. Then, this guy hurriedly opened his personal attribute panel and saw that the unactivated state behind the Ricochet and Magic Showdown skills had finally disappeared. I might need to go home for a while. Recently in the morning, carrying Elizabeth, who was walking a bit unsteadily and inconveniently, to the sofa in the living room, and having just prepared a table of nutritious breakfast before he had time to eat 2 bites, The blonde girl opposite him suddenly spoke. Liang Yue heard this and looked at Elizabeth in surprise, only to see that the other party's expression was also a bit strange. Why, that, maybe it's because of our thing last night. I have now copied the third ability from you, so I need to go home to transform these abilities into magical knowledge. This is my responsibility. Saying that, Elizabeth lowered her head a little shyly, and a blush rose on her cheeks. What a coincidence. Liang Yue was stunned when he heard this and subconsciously blurted out, what coincidence? Elizabeth was also a little taken aback when she heard this guy's words just this morning, before dawn. I also received your blessing. Saying that, Liang Yue told this woman about the blessing of the pure maiden. After listening to this, the blonde girl's face became even more rosy. So that legend is actually true. Well, how long will your thing take? Liang Yue was holding a glass of milk at this time, approached the girl and asked. At least a year and a half. Summarizing and transforming magic is not that easy, and the better the magic, the longer it takes. That's too long. Are you coming back? Of course I'm coming back. What do you want to be irresponsible? Tisk, I mean, aren't you already a senior in high school? In a little over a year, you'll have to go straight to college. Then are you still coming to New York? Wherever you are, I'll go home. Yoshi, but during the time I'm not here, you have to keep your chastity for me. Cough cough cough. HMPH. Looking at you like this, I know you won't be honest. How could I be? Don't try to fool me, otherwise, you last night. I learned all that from the teaching materials. Teaching materials? There are Japanese ones, American ones, anyway, there are many resources online. I'll believe you. Tell me, who in your class have you been secretly hooking up with? Gwen Stacy, or that little Japanese deskmate? It's neither of them, none of them. In this world, besides you, there are no other women. I can guarantee that. I remember you seemed to have said that the reason you became stronger overnight was because you participated in an expedition and helped your friends take back their hometown? Yeah, where did you go? This involves my secrets. Can't you tell me? I can, anytime, but are you ready? Not yet for now. Chapter 211. Miss Natasha. Oak Wand. From the world of Harry Potter, it can be used to assist in casting spells and enhance the stability of magic. Selling price 500 points. Throwing knife. From the world of Castlevania, Symphony of the Night, a type of subweapon. After equipping it and paying a certain price, you can shoot out clones of the throwing knife. Selling price 2,000 points. Soon, another week had passed. During this week, Elizabeth had been with Liang Yue, accompanying him to shop and play all over New York City during the day, and tormenting him to death at night. However, both of them knew that their separation was inevitable. Just this morning, when the sky had just brightened, the woman got up early from bed after dressing and grooming, and putting on neat clothes. She got into a specially treated bulletproof car under Liang Yue's farewell and hurried to the airport. After watching the other party's convoy turn out of the street corner, Liang Yue returned to the hotel room with a flip of his sleeve. He took an apple from the stronghold world, took a bite, and sat leisurely on the sofa. Then he took out a throwing knife about a foot long and examined it carefully. Needless to say, this thing was naturally the throwing knife that had been refreshed in the system store before, from the game world of Symphony of the Night. One of the many subweapons. The subweapon in front of him, although said to be a throwing knife, is actually more like a short sword. The blade is straight, and the edge of the sword is also exceptionally sharp. After appearing, it is also surrounded by a layer of blue halo, and the body occasionally flashes twice, appearing somewhat unreal. Obviously, in addition to the body being a sharp throwing knife, some other magical attributes have also been added to the blade. At a glance, it looks very unusual. Before, when Elizabeth was there, she was inseparable from him, like glue and lacquer. Of course, Liang Yue was a little inconvenient to take it out since the blonde girl herself said that she was not ready to accept his secret. Then Liang Yue naturally could not expose too many real things in front of the other party. The reason why Liang Yue bought this dagger was naturally not because of its attack power, or the characteristic of being able to launch unlimitedly under certain conditions. That is, after buying this throwing knife from the store, a subweapon equipment box was instantly added to Liang Yue's personal equipment interface, which can be specially used to place this throwing knife. In comparison, the oak wand that was refreshed in the store earlier seems much more useless. Like the world it belongs to, it gives people a strange feeling. Harry Potter is clearly just a low magic world, and those wizards holding wands can't even cast a fireball. But there are still some magical items related to the rules their existence, like Gandalf, the berserker mage, looks awkward and discordant. This oak wand may not even be as practical as the low-level goods produced in the Grand Forest dungeon. Therefore, although its selling price is not high, Liang Yue would not spend such unjustifiable points. System. What price do I have to pay to use subweapons normally? Playing with a throwing knife in his hand, the edge of the blade danced gracefully, like a butterfly dancing, accompanied by a flash of blue light, which was really dizzying, but that's all, because at this stage, if Liang Yue wants to deal with distant enemies, firearms are undoubtedly the best choice, and in close combat, firearms can also play a significant role, and the longsword is naturally his main weapon. Therefore, the main advantage of this throwing knife is that it is a sub-weapon. It opens up a new equipment slot for Liang Yue, increasing his equipment potential, and being able to use it without switching weapons may be its biggest advantage. But how to use this sub-weapon has become a difficult point for him, because in the original world of this throwing knife, to drive the sub-weapon, a special heart-shaped substance must be consumed. Liang Yue does not have this thing nowadays. From the moment you obtain and open the sub-weapon slot, the host has a certain chance to explode heart-shaped energy when destroying targets or destroying items. Is it so simple and rude? It seems that this so-called heart-shaped energy must be nothing great. While muttering to himself, Liang Yue couldn't help but scan the furnishings around the room. His eyes focused on the lamps, expensive vases, and the grandfather clock. For a while, forget it, I'll wait until I get to the dungeon to talk about it. It's refreshing to smash around here, but I'm afraid I won't be able to afford it at that time. So far, Liang Yue had been staying in the presidential suite of this hotel for more than a week, costing several $1,000s a day, which was indeed a bit of a waste for him. Fortunately, after sending Elizabeth away, he finally got some free personal time. In fact, given Liang Yue's current situation, he could completely live in the stronghold world, and real estate in the real world had little practical significance apart from serving as a disguise. It was mostly used to entertain guests, of course. The house in Brooklyn that my mother owned couldn't be lost currently. Elizabeth's people had also commissioned a professional team to rebuild it on the original site, but to be honest, Liang Yue didn't dare to trust the work efficiency of these Westerners at all. Even with the urging of powerful figures and heavy financial pressure, the newly built house definitely couldn't be inhabited without a few months of buffer time. In the previous week, Elizabeth had taken him back to the construction site to take a look. At that time, if it weren't for the fact that he didn't want to expose too much of his abilities, and that the walls of modern buildings still needed to have wiring and various pipeline installation reservations, Liang Yue really wanted to go up and help them at the time. Besides, although most of the real estate in reality is for disguise, it is also indispensable. In addition, one day in the future, if teacher Shizuka and Yuriko and her daughter come out of the stronghold world, they will inevitably need a place to cover their tracks. My mother's property won't work. It's located in a mid to high-end residential area, with many people and prying eyes, and it's also close to the homes of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. It seems that buying real estate is imperative. Thinking of this, Liang Yue put away the flying knife in his hand, walked to the glass mirror to tidy up his clothes, called hotel service, and then slowly walked out of the room. As soon as he stepped out of the hotel door, the staff had already promptly driven his new car out. This car was also something that they compensated him with, except that the brand had been changed from the original Hummer to Land Rover. And it was also a modified and upgraded version. After getting in the car, Liang Yue flipped his hand and handed a large bill to the staff member who drove the car over, and then stepped on the gas and drove away. To be honest, Liang Yue had always been very unaccustomed to this so-called tipping culture. It was troublesome, not to mention he often forgot to give it. If he hadn't seen Elizabeth's behavior of tipping the staff when he went out with her before, he would have almost forgotten about it. Without a word along the way, after a burst of speed, Liang Yue quickly arrived at the foot of Stark Tower. After finding a paid parking space to park the car, and going through a security check, he arrived at the front desk of the building. Hello, sir. Is there anything I can help you with? I'm looking for Tony Stark. May I ask your name? Did you make an appointment before? My name is Liang Yue. I didn't make an appointment, but you can give him a call. He should be very happy that I'm here. If he's still busy with research and development, then you can also notify Miss Pepper first. Okay, please wait a moment, Mr. Liang Yue. After a while, a lady with dark red long hair and wavy curls, dressed in OL attire, walked down from the elevator in a hurry. After scanning the lobby, she went straight to Liang Yue. Black Widow? This plot is progressing really fast, but calculating the time, it's about time. Looking at the enchanting figure, with a charming smile on her face, and walking towards him with cat-like steps, Liang Yue was slightly lost for a moment. Hello, are you Mr. Liang Yue? Black high heels stopped 1 meter in front of him. The Black Widow asked him knowingly at this time. Hello, Miss Natasha. Liang Yue smiled directly at this famous super agent. Please come with me. President Pepper Potts is waiting for you in the office. After hearing his address to her, the Black Widow tilted her pretty face slightly, took a deep look at him, and then led him to the elevator from which she came. Oh, Miss Pepper has been promoted to president? It seems that the step is a bit big. Stark is not in this building now, but he left a message saying that if Mr. Liang Yue comes to find him, he will send you to his current residence, Malibu Beach. Following the Black Widow's enchanting back into the elevator, after the elevator doors closed, this dreaded Black Widow put aside her official business posture and turned to face Liang Yue with her arms folded. If I remember correctly, we haven't met before, Mr. Liang Yue. May I ask how you know my name? Since Carlson came to my house last time and expressed his intention to recruit me, I deliberately checked some information about your shieldo. What did you find out? The situation is a bit complicated. You seem to have been thoroughly infiltrated. The current situation can be said to be very dangerous. Chapter 212 Xavier Manor. Welcome to Stark Industries, Mr. Liang Yue. First, I want to thank you for your assistance to Tony. He has now successfully escaped the danger. Oh? Has he developed that metal already? It seems like it was just a few days ago, but he's still in the basement of the vacation villa, busy with research. Oh right, according to the last agreement, Stark Industries will also transfer another $100 million to your account. As for the profit sharing of the new energy, it will be settled annually, depending on the specific situation later. That's not urgent. Actually, I'm here this time to do another business deal with you. And this is the wine I promised to Tony last time. I thought you'd forgotten, kid. Just as Liang Yue was sitting on the sofa in the reception area, having a close conversation with Ms. Pepper Potts, the new president of Stark Industries, Tony Stark's voice suddenly interjected. However, the source of this voice was not pure human voice, but from a loudspeaker on the side of the reception room wall. Buzz, along with a slight hum, the wall in front of him suddenly split to both sides, revealing a large electronic screen inside, almost the size of a cinema screen. Immediately afterwards, Tony Stark's huge head appeared on the screen. At this time, the expression of this wealthy man seemed a little excited, but his face was not very good, greasy, with dark circles firmly attached to his eyelids, and his eyes were also full of bloodshot. Obviously, he should not have closed his eyes for several days. Through the corner of the picture, it can be seen that Stark is in a laboratory at this time, and a precision machine next to him is still being assembled quickly. You look a little haggard, Mr. Stark. After Liang Yue took the coffee handed over by the Black Widow, he raised his cup to Stark on the opposite screen, and then gave a kind reminder. Pepper, on the other side, looked over with a worried expression. Don't worry, Pepper, I'm fine now. The heavy metal toxins in my body have been completely cleared, and the latest model of the Iron Man armor has just been completed and is being assembled now. Of course, it would be even better if there was a glass of ancient fruit wine by my side at this time. However, before he could finish his words, his eyes were attracted by Natasha, who was walking past Liang Yue and Pepper. The enchanting back slowly twisted, and immediately stuck all of Stark's attention on the enlarged ultra-clear screen. All the micro-expressions on the face of this wealthy man, including the hint of amazement in his expression, were undoubtedly revealed. Quaff humph, but soon, with the cold reminder from Ms. Pepper next to him, Tony Stark on the opposite side instantly came back to his senses. Then he quickly blinked at the two of them, pretending to be a little confused, and explained, "Oh, I just seem to be a little neurasthenic, and even my vision started to drift a little. It seems I really should have a good sleep." Cough. Where were we just now? Oh right. Hey, Liang Yue, where's the wine you promised me? Pa, it's here, Tony, but although my wine can nourish your body, what you need most now is rest. With that, Liang Yue flipped his hand and waved it gently in front of him, and 10 bottles of ancient fruit wine suddenly appeared on the table. Oh, I really miss these things. Also, your hand is so cool, Liang Yue. What was that principle just now? A portable storage space. There is a group of mages in the Himalayas who can also open mirror spaces through special tools and shuttle freely to various locations on Earth. Things in the field of mysticism? I'm not good at this. Pepper, find a way to get those wines to me quickly. It needs to be express air transport, and be careful during the transport. I'll take these wines and fly over to see you later. Tony, you're coming over? No need, I'm fine now. You need someone to take care of you. Tony, okay, we'll talk about this later. Liang Yue, didn't you say that you have a business deal to do with me this time? With that, Tony Stark on the opposite side turned his attention to Liang Yue again. Yes, I actually want to exchange some US dollars with you for gold. Liang Yue put down the coffee in his hand at this time and looked at the wealthy man on the screen and said, exchange gold for US dollars. This business can be done. Our group purchases a batch of gold every year to press the bottom of the cabin, But I hear from your words that you seem to need a lot of money. Stark looked at him in surprise at this time. Yes, I do need a lot this time. The money in the agreement is not enough for you to squander? You know that's 100 million US dollars. Don't tell me you've become addicted to gambling and owe a lot of debt, kid. My house was blown up before, and it's being torn down and rebuilt now, but I don't think this time will be too short, so I need a new property. Looking at Stark on the opposite side, with that look as if he was looking at a bare child, Liang Yue couldn't help but spread his hands with a wry smile and explain, property? That's a legitimate reason. Which manor are you looking at? Give him a map, Pepper. As Stark's words fell, Pepper, who was at his side, brought over a specially made tablet. Her slender fingers tapped on it a few times, and the entire map of New York City appeared on the screen. Liang Yue then fiddled with it a couple of times, flipping the map to the northern part of New York. Stark, on the other side of the screen, seemed to be able to see the image as well. As someone skillfully manipulated it, the expression on the dog tycoon's face began to turn strange. If I'm not mistaken, kid, your finger is already poking at Westchester over there. That's not New York City, but it's pretty close to the slums of New York City. Why would you choose here, Liang Yue? If I remember correctly, aren't you still going to high school in Brooklyn? Or are you planning to take a helicopter back and forth to school? As for school, I'll find another place near the school. I don't need to buy it, just rent it. After all, my house in Brooklyn should be rebuilt in a while. I just happened to take a fancy to a manor over in Westchester. This time as he spoke, Liang Yue just happened to flip the map to the exact point. With a light tap of his finger, the floor plan of the manor immediately appeared on the screen. Soon after a complex calculation, the floor plan of the entire manor instantly turned into a 3D image. After a quick rendering, the rendering of the area was completed. Wow, black technology. Subsequently, the camera began to rotate constantly on the screen. The effect was like watching a live broadcast from a drone. Xavier's mansion. There's actually a place like this near New York? Jarvis, help me search for information about this place. As Tony Stark muttered to himself, several split-screen images immediately appeared on the screen, showing information about the manor quickly appearing. Pepper, who was beside him, was very familiar with this operation. With a light tap of her finger, she zoomed in on one of the images separately. Under the cover of a sea of forest trees, a small cluster of buildings was being built. In the middle there were blossoming flowers, fountain gardens, a horse farm, a golf course, and a lake. More importantly, the main part of the building was an elegant castle, the kind that looked very old, with rose vines crawling all over one side of the wall. Pepper, who was beside him, had already clenched her hands tightly, looking at the computer screen with a look of longing. Oh, it's so beautiful there. You like this place, Pepper? I'm a little yearning, Tony, but let's take care of Liang Yue's business first. Don't worry, Pepper, I'm just asking for your opinion. When the time comes, we'll just buy a manor nearby. If there isn't one, we'll just buy a piece of land and build one directly. It just so happens that we do need a foothold on the East Coast. Then what about your villa on Long Island? Just let it stay there. Don't you think that it's perfectly legitimate for Mr. Tony Stark, a top figure in the United States of America, to invest in and reserve a few more properties? Whatever you want, Tony. Okay, now that you've agreed, it'll be easy with that. Stark refocused his gaze on Liang Yue, and then began to look at the picture next to him while saying to him, Xavier's mansion. Its previous owner was Professor Charles Francis Xavier, an expert in genetics and biophysics, but unfortunately he died of a cerebral infarction a few years ago. So this manor is now inherited by his son, David Waller? But it looks like this is a spendthrift. This kid recently owed a bunch of debts because of gambling. His income is very limited, so he put this manor up for sale. Also, the asking price for this manor is $120 million. The area of Xavier's mansion is 500 acres, and more than 70% of the entire manor is forest, and there's a lake. This price is reasonable, but it's a little too high. Pepper, finds someone to take down this manor, and by the way, negotiate the price and try to get the price down to below $100 million. After saying that, Tony Stark turned his gaze back to Liang Yue. Kid, besides the $100 million in the agreement, how many US dollars do you want to exchange for me for gold? Exchange $100 million first. $100 million? According to the current international gold price, that's almost 3 tons of gold. Do you have that much gold? Faced with the dog tycoon's question, Liang Yue was too lazy to talk nonsense at this time. He stood up directly from the sofa, and then waved his hand frantically at the open space next to him. Pa. In a moment, a large pile of gold and ingots was placed in the living room. Judging from the volume alone, The weight of this neatly stacked pile of gold must be greater than 3 tons. Okay kid, I underestimated you before. It seems that you don't lack money. All you lack is US dollars. Pepper, find someone to check the quality of this pile of gold ingots, then wire the money to him, and also help this kid avoid taxes. Liang Yue, remember to clean up your yard properly, and in a while, we will be neighbors. Don't even think about sponging wine from my house. Tony HMPH, you found out about that? Chapter 213 McRedstone. Without a doubt, the so-called Professor Charles Francis Xavier refers to the legendary Professor X. The Xavier Mansion under his name is also the famous X Mansion, or, it can be called Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. Liang Yue naturally paid close attention to the mutants, a group that once occupied a significant portion and status in the Marvel Universe. Since he came to the United States, he would specifically search for news about this group on the internet every few days, but unfortunately, he always came up empty under such circumstances. Liang Yue naturally understood the fact that mutants do not exist in the world he is currently in. After all, if there really were mutant groups here, they would never be able to be so unknown as they are now. Magneto and others would be busy with uprisings all day long, busy with creating big events, and Professor X would also be busy putting out fires everywhere, and trying to build a bridge of friendship between the mutant race and humans. It can be said that the main reason why mutants are rejected by ordinary human society is because there are too many of them, so many that if they were united, there would be a high probability of them replacing humans and becoming the masters of the earth. Therefore, under this situation, it is absolutely impossible for mutants to leave no trace in reality or on the internet. Just a few days ago, Liang Yue, on a whim, drove with Elizabeth all the way to the Xavier Mansion, harboring the thought of pilgrimage in his heart, hoping to get the permission of the owner and visit. However, after arriving there, he learned that this mansion, which is so famous in the Marvel multiverse, had been listed for sale a long time ago, and it seems that it hasn't been sold yet. So, after taking the blonde girl beside him to see it, Liang Yue had the idea of buying it anyway. He originally wanted to buy a larger house. Isn't this ready-made? Isn't it just a little more expensive? 120 million US dollars is definitely an astronomical figure for ordinary people, but for him, is it a big deal? In the base world, he has mined so many gold mines, most of which have been melted into gold ingots. Apart from Liang Yue making a few golden apples on a whim, and a few golden weapons hanging on the wall for decoration, they are almost useless. In addition, there is no need to say more about the wealth obtained from the worlds of the heavens. Just the treasure of Sauron and Mordor City is enough to make too many people jealous. Just as Stark said before, Liang Yue is not short of money, he only lacks US dollars, this kind of small paper. So, due to the needs of supply and demand, he came to this big money bags today to exchange for US dollars, and Stark is obviously very kind. In addition to agreeing to the exchange, he also took on the matter of buying and selling the manor, which is definitely one less trouble for Liang Yue. I believe that with a professional commercial team of Stark Group negotiating, he should be able to save a lot of money. Also, just as Tony said, although Xavier's mansion has a good view and is large enough, it is located in the northern suburbs of New York City. In terms of administrative division, it directly belongs to the scope of Westchester, which is too far away from the high school Liang Yue is currently attending. It is not realistic to drive back and forth every day if he can't find a solution. Then he can only go there for one day every weekend. Ask the big money bags for a set of Iron Man armor. Well, it's better not to think too much about this matter for the time being. The request is too excessive, and it may offend people and hurt feelings. Wait for good things to appear in the system store? This is too random. If it really doesn't work, then I can only wait until the Chitauri come to attack the Earth and get more spoils of war for the Chitauri army, which has already advanced to the cosmic race. Flying is just the most common standard configuration. Alright. Tony, what's the matter? Just as the goal of this trip was completed, Liang Yue had already gotten up to say goodbye, and he was about to walk out of the reception room door when he suddenly remembered something, so he returned to the front of the screen with a flip of his sleeve. He took out a special small red stone from the storage box of his base world. This is redstone. It is a very special substance. I hope you can help me study it. Research. Is there anything special about this stone? Tony Stark was also immediately interested when he heard this, and asked while looking at the irregular small stone in his hand. This red stone can be used to make torches, make switches, or provide a kind of energy similar to electric current for wires. At the same time, after crushing this thing into powder, it can also be made into wires. Yes, then make one for me to see. Wait a moment. Saying that, Liang Yue, under the gaze of Tony Stark on the other side of the screen, Pepper, and Natasha, who had just walked in from outside the door, put a wooden stick and a piece of redstone into the crafting bar that comes with his equipment interface. When he took it out again, a redstone torch was born just like that. Of course, they definitely can't see Liang Yue's equipment bar, and they can't see this synthesis process, but at this time, the redstone torch in his hand can't deceive people. Once taken out, this torch instantly dyed the entire reception room in front of him with a layer of red. An unusual firelight was constantly fluttering at the top of the torch at this time. At first glance, it looks a bit like a burning stick, but the light it emits is not so dazzling, but very soft, and it hardly produces any smoke. Anyone with discerning eyes can tell that it is different. How did you do it? Tony Stark was holding his arms with one hand and stroking his chin with the other, and asked with a bit of surprise on his face. You can understand it as I just used magical alchemy. If it is a similar comparison, I can actually use a wooden stick and a piece of coal to synthesize an ordinary torch, Liang Yue said, and once again took out the wooden stick and coal to demonstrate the production process to a few people. Of course, they still, at most, can only see the beginning, and the result is knowledge from the field of the mysterious side again. Pepper, when you come over later, remember to bring Liang Yue's redstone with you. Saying that, Stark looked at him, sniffed his nose, and continued to ask, how much are you going to give me to do research? Give you 10 first, Liang Yue said, and waved the redstone in his hand towards the table, and 10 redstones were immediately lined up on it. This thing doesn't have radiation, does it? Natasha suddenly asked from the side at this time, and as soon as she said this, it immediately attracted the attention of the other two. Liang Yue was also stunned when he heard this. But then he denied it shouldn't. Anyway, I'm fine holding it in my hand. Chapter 214, Dinosaur Egg. In the blink of an eye, another week had passed. About 5 days ago, urged and personally led by Aunt Liu, Liang Yue finally returned to school, resuming his leisurely and carefree high school life. His classmates expressed confusion and concern about his 2-week absence, especially Sam and Peter, who seemed determined to get to the bottom of it. But in the end, Liang Yue managed to brush them off with the excuse of being sick and hospitalized. The two idiots, unwilling to give up, even pressed him to tell them what kind of illness he had, and in desperation, he had to tell them that he had gone to have his appendix removed. However, just because Sam and Holland were easily fooled didn't mean that others would easily believe his story. For example, Gwen Stacy, the father of this high IQ female scholar, is the chief of the New York City Police Department, in charge of the security of the entire city. Naturally, she has learned some professional methods of reasoning and judging things. In the end, Liang Yue's lies were exposed one afternoon when this female scholar accidentally passed by his house, which could only be described as a construction site. Subsequently, the girl remained calm the next morning, and in the afternoon, she directly gathered Sam, Holland, and Liang Yue's deskmate to play the stalking game. Liang Yue had naturally been aware of this for a long time, but he was somewhat helpless about the behavior of his classmates. In the end, he could only let them do as they pleased, and then actively welcomed them into the apartment he had just rented near the school not long ago. This apartment building is for rent. The area is naturally not as large as his mother's single-family house, but the decoration is very fashionable, and the furniture is complete, so you can move in directly with your bags. However, since it is located around the school, which falls under the category of school district housing, the rent is not cheap. Liang Yue signed a half-year lease in one go, which directly cost nearly $20,000, and the water and electricity bills were also at his own expense. However, expensive also has its advantages. At least the property management of the building is very well done. It can be said that if Liang Yue hadn't been downstairs at the gate to greet them, Sam and Gwen wouldn't have been able to pass the guard's gate. After taking care of the pass procedures for his classmates, he took them to his new residence. Seriously, Liang Yue, why did you move here? Gwen said that your original house is being rebuilt, and according to her investigation, it is said that your house was blown up. Holding a cup of honey grapefruit tea brewed with warm water in her hand, and eating the cookies carefully baked by Sister Zixu, it still couldn't stop Holland's mouth. As soon as he sat down, he asked the question that everyone else cared about the most. Seeing this, Liang Yue didn't hide anything and said directly, okay, since you want to know, there's nothing I can't say. I was attacked some time ago. Attacked? Everyone was shocked when they heard this. Is it an attack from your book fans? Because they were dissatisfied with certain plots in your novel, they launched a revenge. Sam's mind was wide open at this time, with a hint of excitement in his eyes, and he couldn't wait to tell his speculation. However, what he got in return was unanimous rolling eyes from others. Next, Liang Yue roughly told the 4 people about what happened during this period, including the appearance of a rival in love, who hired a killer to attack him out of jealousy, blew up the house, and finally the other party admitted defeat and withdrew his deskmate. Yamamoto Neko put her hands on her knees at this time, and asked with a faint smile on her face, almost. I took a vacation for myself during this time, and by the way, I toured almost the entire city of New York. Seeing this, Liang Yue didn't feel embarrassed and said directly, I heard that she has now transferred and left. Isn't this also related to your being attacked? Gwen Stacy was fiddling with a small spoon in her teacup at this time, and asked seemingly pointedly, Elizabeth's transfer has no direct relationship with my being attacked. Leaving is only related to her obligations to her family. She probably has to be gone for a year or so before she can come back, Liang Yue said helplessly. At this time, more than a year? We should all be going to college by then, right? Liang Yue, you should still be staying in the United States then, right? Holland took over the conversation and looked at him and asked, well, I should be in the United States. As for whether I will go to college or not, it will depend on the situation. In fact, Liang Yue also wanted to leave. After the exchange life ended, he wanted to immediately leave this place of right and wrong in New York, far away, but unfortunately, the appearance of this young man Sam directly broke his fantasy. Marvel was already troublesome enough, and now with the addition of Transformers, it can be said that there is no safe place on the entire Earth. Fortunately, the plots of these two series mostly harm the United States in a short period of time. Marvel's main battlefield is mostly concentrated in New York, and occasionally it will go to London to stroll around, but it never changes. Therefore, Liang Yue is very satisfied with the manor he bought in the northern suburbs of New York. It is neither too close to the battlefield, nor too far away in comparison. The main cities destroyed by Transformers are in Los Angeles, but that is also on the west coast of the United States. You don't plan to continue going to college? Will you focus on writing novels in the future? Sam asked on the opposite side at this time. No, I actually have some other ideas. Oh, by the way, what's going on with your house? I mean, although the land is still there, it must cost a lot of money to rebuild it, right? I don't need to spend money. Since the person who hired the murderer to attack me this time admitted defeat, he will bear this part of the cost. And, in fact, my rival in love seems to have known Elizabeth since childhood. Are they childhood sweethearts? Yamamoto Neko's seemingly casual blow immediately hit Liang Yue's heart. So this guy also changed the subject. I don't know, but that's not important. By the way, some time ago, I just made a deal and got a lot of money, so I took advantage of the past few days off. I bought a manor in the suburbs. Are you interested in going there to play on the weekend? Manor? Really? Where's it, buddy? How did you do it? Prayer helmet. From the Legend of Mirror World, one of the 5 treasures created by a mysterious craftsman with the souls of his relatives. When a set is collected, it can make the target's pet or summoned creature defect within a certain range. The selling price is 5,000 points. Dinosaur egg. From the Stardew Valley world, after hatching, an herbivorous dinosaur with asexual reproduction ability can appear. The selling price is 1,000 points. Chapter 215 This ISN and Chapter X27, Tea Poison. After hosting a sumptuous and delicious late lunch for the 4 at home, arranging a time and place for a weekend get-together, and finally seeing his classmates off, Liang Yue didn't find himself any more relaxed. The security guards downstairs, whom he had just praised for their dedication to duty, now seemed to have made a fundamental error. Well, Ms. Natasha Romanoff, judging by your appearance, you seem to be just getting off work. But I thought as the assistant to the new CEO of Stark Industries, you were supposed to be on call. 247. Liang Yue leaned against the door, feeling rather helpless, looking at the sudden arrival of the Black Widow, unsure of what to say. He had only just left S.H.I.E.L.D.'s radar a few days ago, and now she was already knocking on his door. It seemed they really didn't want him to have any peace. Aren't you going to invite me in? After hearing his words, the Black Widow simply gave him a charming smile, and then looked at him and said. Liang Yue, hearing this, didn't feel much animosity towards this S.H.I.E.L.D. super agent. In his heart, he was just subconsciously wary of these intelligence operatives, but it hadn't reached the point where he wouldn't even let her in the door, so he took 2 steps back and stepped aside. Thank you. What are you doing with a suitcase? If I said I wanted to move in, would you be willing? That might not be very convenient. Don't worry, I just came to say hello to my new neighbor, and also to ask you something. Neighbor? You don't mean to say you've moved here too? Actually, I've owned a permanent apartment here for years. You mean, you have a secret safe house in this building? I'm not hungry, thank you. But if you could give me a glass of wine, I would be very grateful, the kind you gave to Tony Stark the other day. As she spoke, the Black Widow winked at Liang Yue, then took a big, red apple from the fruit basket on the coffee table and took a light bite. The fresh and unique taste immediately stunned the super agent, who was used to seeing the world after a long, comfortable sigh. She leaned softly back on the sofa, happily eating the apple in small bites. At this time, Liang Yue had already taken 2 glasses from the kitchen and opened a new bottle of ancient fruit wine, pouring a small half glass for each of them. Thank you. You have a lot of good things in your house, and it feels very comfortable to me. As she spoke, the Black Widow raised her wine glass and clinked it against Liang Yue's, tilting her head back to drink a small mouthful of the crystal clear, deep blue liquid. Speaking of which, Ms. Natasha, you didn't come here for what I said to you in the elevator last time, did you? I was just saying it casually. Liang Yue sat on the single sofa next to her, with a smile on his face, but in his heart, he couldn't help but want to slap his own mouth if he hadn't shown off last time by saying that S.H.I.E.L.D. had been infiltrated, and then pretended not to know her. None of this would have happened, of course. Yes, I came for, ugh. As she was speaking, the Black Widow's expression suddenly changed, and a charming and moving face suddenly showed some pain. At first, she just frowned slightly, but soon, this battle-hardened super agent seemed unable to bear the pain any longer, moaning incessantly. Finally, she hugged her lower abdomen and curled up on the sofa. Ms. Natasha? What's wrong? No, this wine isn't poisonous, and I drank it too. Seeing this, Liang Yue quickly put the wine glass on the coffee table, and then squatted in front of her trembling body, explaining somewhat helplessly. However, all that answered him was an even more heart-wrenching moan of pain. At this time, the Black Widow's face had begun to turn red, with veins popping on her face, looking like she had been poisoned. But then, she did something that surprised Liang Yue, which was to tremblingly pick up the wine glass on the coffee table and continue to drink the wine. A somewhat distorted face still faintly carried a hint of desire. Bang! Smash! Clang! Boom! Immediately afterwards, accompanied by a chaotic sound of crashing and banging, the glass windows in Liang Yue's living room, kitchen, and bedroom, and even the metal security door, were violently smashed open from the outside. A group of combat personnel dressed in black tactical uniforms, almost armed to the teeth, suddenly descended from the sky, hanging from ropes, holding shields and automatic rifles. They rushed in from all directions. Within a few breaths, they surrounded Liang Yue and Natasha, who was in pain, and shouted incessantly, "Stop! Don't move, don't move! Raise your hands! Get on the ground! Now, hurry! Kneel down for me! You son of a bitch, hurry! Now!" Unfortunately, looking at the bluffing faces of these people around him, Liang Yue remained unmoved. Moreover, as the expression on his face gradually began to become ugly, and he rose from a half-squatting position, the people around him slowly began to become cautious. "Natasha, are you okay?" After a period of tension and chaos, a man with a buzz cut and a bow and arrow in his hand suddenly pushed through the crowd and walked in, with concern and a hint of tension on his face. "Barton, let them all out. This is a misunderstanding." The Black Widow continued to huddle on the sofa, barely speaking to the other party in a trembling voice. After speaking, she didn't forget to pour a small sip of wine into her mouth. "Misunderstanding? But Natasha, the way you look now, listen to me, okay?" After a while, a group of Special Forces members walked out of the collapsed doorway of the apartment in embarrassment. The agent, who had been identified as Hawkeye Barton, had also slung his bow and arrow over his back, and was now squatting beside the Black Widow, watching her with a confused and concerned expression. And Liang Yue, at this moment, was holding his waist, with a stinky face, looking at the dirt, black footprints, glass shards, and the fallen iron door on the carpet in his living room. The whole person seemed a little dazed. "Natasha, are you feeling better now? What happened just now?" Hawkeye Barton looked at the Black Widow, who was still curled up on the sofa, but whose face was obviously much better, and asked softly, "Don't worry, Barton, this is just a misunderstanding. Also, the wine that Liang Yue just gave me was too good, I couldn't react in time." As she spoke, the Black Widow poured the little remaining wine in her glass into her mouth, then climbed to the coffee table, took Liang Yue's glass, and drank it all in one gulp. "Too good? Then what was wrong with you just now?" Barton asked strangely. Upon hearing this only this time, the Black Widow did not answer the other party's words, but looked up at Liang Yue, forced a smile, and said, "I'm sorry, Liang Yue, we've caused you trouble this time. Someone will come over later to clean up for you, and also to discuss the issue of compensation. Although I really want to stay and keep you company, but I really need to go to the hospital for a checkup now." As she spoke, the Black Widow stood up from the sofa with some difficulty, straightened her back, her eyes red, vaguely with a hint of tears, and gave Liang Yue a warm hug. Then, she picked up most of the bottle of ancient fruit wine on the coffee table, gestured to him, and staggered out, supported by Hawkeye Barton. After a long while, Liang Yue pursed his lips, looked at his apartment that he had just moved into not long ago, and sighed heavily. Oh, $20,000, just like that, gone to the dogs afterwards. This guy immediately packed up his luggage, put on a coat, and walked out the door with some helplessness. Chapter 216. Betty Ross. In the end, with nowhere else to go, Liang Yue was once again reduced to staying in a hotel. There was no other way. In this freezing winter month, the windows of his home had been smashed, and the door had been kicked down. The floors and carpets had been trampled by so many shoes, that even if Liang Yue didn't have any serious obsessive-compulsive habits, he certainly wouldn't stay there and subject himself to that. Even if Liang Yue was about to head straight to the Stronghold world to enjoy double his personal time, he still couldn't as a refined young man. Sometimes he had to put on appearances. However, since this matter was the fault of S.H.I.E.L.D., they had to give him an explanation even without him saying anything. The minimum requirement was that if, when Liang Yue returned home from school tomorrow afternoon, they hadn't repaired his apartment, cleaned it up, and delivered a certain amount of compensation for damages, then that would prove that this organization was not worth cooperating with, or rather, that they held some discriminatory behavior towards Liang Yue. In that case, they shouldn't expect him to provide them with even the slightest bit of help in the future. After checking into the hotel, it was already past 6 in the afternoon in New York City. Approaching December, it was already night, and the dazzling neon lights illuminated the entire city. Outside the window, a thin layer of snowflakes was slowly falling with a cold wind, making the entire city seem somewhat hazy. Since the neighborhood where Liang Yue was located still belonged to the surrounding area of the campus, although the atmosphere of the bar in front of him seemed a bit strong, it didn't give people the slightest sense of chaos. A group of people dancing and singing along to country music was actually a rare kind of warm atmosphere in the Steel City of New York. With the help of alcohol, the men and women who were dressed in suits and ties, or who were somewhat dull and overly rigorous, began to put down the pretenses in life and gradually integrate into the atmosphere. Do you have any drink recommendations? Arriving at the bar, Liang Yue asked the bartender inside, who was wearing a vest and striking poses to show off to a woman next to him. How about a flaming lips? I guarantee it's very stimulating. Being disturbed from his plan to pick up a girl, the bartender was obviously a little unhappy at this time, especially after seeing that Liang Yue was an Asian with black hair and black eyes. A hint of unwarranted contempt seemed to rise on the young man's face. It was predictable that the other party would give him a hard time. Seeing this, Liang Yue suddenly became interested. Don't listen to him. The flaming lips here is a mixed drink made with liquor of over 90 proof. Judging by your age, you should have a lighter ale at this moment. The woman who had just been constantly wooed by the bartender suddenly joined the conversation, her magnetic voice carrying a hint of hazy drunkenness. Turning her head, her hair was pulled back, revealing a face that Liang Yue was extremely familiar with. Alvin? What are you doing here? Oh, sorry, I mistook you for someone else. Seeing the other party's face, Liang Yue thought he was hallucinating for a moment, but he quickly reacted and gave the lady in front of him, who was already a bit flushed with alcohol, an apologetic smile. That's right. This woman was none other than the female doctor who had followed General Ross off the helicopter when he had beheaded Abomination on the street. The other party's proper identity was General Ross's daughter, Dr. Banner's ex-girlfriend, Betty Ross. Moreover, this female doctor should currently be teaching at the university next to Liang Yue's high school anyway. They were nearby, so it was normal to come over for a drink after work. It's just that Miss Betty seemed to have drunk a bit too much at this time, and a layer of confusion was covering her crystal clear eyes, and the other party's reaction at this time seemed a bit strange. After seeing Liang Yue, the female doctor actually moved her head closer, carefully examining his forehead, eyebrows, hairstyle, and eyes before saying with a tipsy smile, "Is that how you pick up women, little boy, huh? Do we know each other, Mom?" Seeing this, Liang Yue asked in surprise. At that time, he had only glanced at the other party from afar on the street, relying on his own eyesight far beyond ordinary people to clearly see the woman's face, but if it were the other way around more or less. After that incident, my father specifically investigated you. I also saw information about you at his house. That's how I know you just turned 18 this year and you're still in high school next door. Oh, but I actually recognized you by your eyes. Hell, he's saying that. The female doctor rubbed her forehead, the corners of her mouth curved in a wanton smile, looking like she might fall over drunk at any moment. Okay, it seems that in the eyes of certain classes, I'm already a celebrity. How is he? I'm referring to Dr. Banner. Hearing this, Liang Yue immediately moved closer to the lady, ignoring the bartender's disgruntled expression, and continued to draw closer to the topic. You know him too. Betty Ross raised her head again upon hearing this, and looked at Liang Yue, propping her chin up with one hand after mentioning her ex-boyfriend. A hint of sorrow clearly appeared on the woman's face. Yes, I also investigated the whole story that night afterwards and found that it all seemed to be caused by Dr. Banner's blood. Banner. He escaped from the military prison not long after the incident and turned into the Hulk again. That inhibitor was useless to him. He and I are no longer possible. Alice, along with a helpless sigh, a tear suddenly flowed from the woman's eyes. Seeing this, Liang Yue quickly handed over a few tissues. Your flaming lips, kid. I've already heard what you said. Only 18 years old, still in high school, and you dare to come to a bar to drink. Do you have enough money on you? Pushing a glass of excessive liquor with a layer of red liquid floating on top in front of him, the bartender raised his eyebrows at this time, looking at him with a contemptuous expression. As for such a provocateur with obvious intentions, Liang Yue was too lazy to pay attention to the other party. He picked up the wine glass and took a sip. After carefully tasting it, he found that the taste was actually not bad. The layer of red liquid on top of the glass should be a plum juice mixed into the liquor and blended. The taste was relatively soft, with a hint of sourness and sweetness. The layer below was pure whiskey. It was indeed as the bartender had said before. The taste was very hot and stimulating. The taste is okay, but the choice of base liquor is slightly lacking. After smacking his lips, Liang Yue commented, as such as for the so-called liquor of over 90 proof, it was just a joke in front of him. It would take a lot more to get him drunk. Seeing this, Dr. Betty next to him suddenly laughed in a way that made people confused, but later, she suddenly hiccuped, and then her body softened forward, directly falling into Liang Yue's arms. Liang Yue, bartender, hey Dr. Betty, are you okay? Are you really drunk? If you don't wake up, I'll take it as you're giving me a chance. Gently patting the woman's back, Liang Yue realized that she still had no reaction, and he was immediately dumbfounded. Looking at the bartender next to him, he saw that the other party was wearing an expectant and faintly excited expression, obviously planning to pick up a corpse. What else could Liang Yue say when he saw this? He directly held the female doctor up from her seat. Hey, if you want to take her away, pay the bill together. Before the bartender could finish speaking, Liang Yue had already slapped a $100 bill in front of him. After drinking the half glass of flaming lips on the bar in one gulp, he disappeared into the bar with the woman in his arms, leaving the other party with a face as if he had swallowed a fly. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 217, The Extraordinary Swordlight. Seed of the 100-Year Thorns, a magical plant from a certain fantasy world, possessing tenacious vitality. Through magic as a medium, it can instantly create a morning star that can freely change size. Its texture is hard, can be used repeatedly and slowly self-repaired, and can also be directly planted on the ground to turn into a thorn tree. The selling price is 1,000 points. 100 iridium ores, the most tenacious and peculiar ore in the Stardew Valley world, from extraterrestrial meteorites, can be used to create various utensils and can stably carry the power of magic. The selling price is 3,000 points. Nameless Sword Manual, from the world of demigods and semidevils. It is said that Zhou Bufan accidentally found it in the depths of Changbei Mountain. After 30 years of hard training, his swordsmanship became great. Without the convenience of any weapons or the cultivation of internal force, he can create a half-foot sword glow out of thin air on the blade, which can greatly enhance the power of swordsmanship. The selling price is 5,000 points. This is the Nameless Sword Manual that the sword god Zhou Bufan, who was taught a lesson by Suzu as soon as he entered the Jianghu, relied on. At more than 12 o'clock in the morning, almost the first time Liang Yue saw this sword manual refreshed on the shelf, he bought it without hesitation. In addition to being curious about this sword manual and wanting to explore the so-called indestructible magical sword glow, more importantly, to commemorate that the first cultivation technique secret book that can be used for cultivation has finally been refreshed in his system store, Liang Yue should go to the next world of the heavens to start a new experience. At this time, he is in the Stronghold world. In the highest difficulty map of the Grand Forest Dungeon series, the King-level Dark Thunderous Ruins. All the monsters on the map have been cleaned up by him, including the final boss of the Dark Thunderous Ruins, the Corpse Thief Bone Prison Breath. At this moment, the option to exit the dungeon has been suspended in front of his eyes for a long time, But this guy is still unmoved. Underneath him is a dense net bed woven from his hair, connected to two big trees in the dark thunderous ruins, with a torch stuck on the tree trunk next to it. Liang Yue is leisurely lying on it, swinging left and right from time to time. The gentle shaking makes him feel particularly comfortable. Needless to say, at this time, he is naturally speeding up the magic absorption efficiency of the magic power heart at the center of his eyebrows by grinding time. Thanks to the excellent environment in the Grand Forest, his current magic absorption speed has increased from 10 points per day in the real world to 150 points per day, a full 15 times the difference. This discovery simply made Liang Yue ecstatic. In addition, with the practice of some unique skills, I believe that it will not take long before I will no longer have to worry about the lack of magic power. It's a pity that if you want to enter the dungeon, you need to enter the stronghold world first. In this way, it is impossible to maintain this efficiency during the long period of experience in the heavens. Now I can only hope that the system can send me to a world with a higher energy intensity this time. Before midnight, Liang Yue had been practicing Gandalf's named meditation technique. This thing is the personal experience of a demigod species in the magical world. Although the old wizard himself simply wanted to speed up the gathering of his own magic power when he created this technique, but intentionally or unintentionally, he actually attached many characteristics exclusive to the magical plane to this meditation technique. It doesn't matter in the low magic plane of Middle-earth, but if it is placed in front of you, in this high magic dungeon belonging to the DNF plane, many inconspicuous characteristics that were originally ignored have now become treasures in Liang Yue's eyes. A named meditation technique level 3-5 current level 3A mental power training method created by Gandalf, a natural demigod-level creature, based on his life experience. Technique effect: energy gathering speed plus 15%, cultivation speed plus 9%, perceive magical elements, mental power control, energy plus 35, proficiency 35,977 100,000. In addition to passively increasing the energy gathering speed and the efficiency of technique cultivation, two new attributes have emerged one after another when this technique advanced to the third level: perceive magical elements and mental power control. The former is easy to understand. After all, according to normal people's thinking, meditation techniques and the magical plane can generally help people perceive the magical elements traveling in the air to help casters practice and release magic. The latter, mental power control, focuses on more detailed mastery, training, and operation of the practitioner's own mental power. Since having this characteristic, Liang Yue has focused his attention on the training of his own mental power when practicing this meditation technique. Just like Dazu Fist's development of the human body and the application of potential abilities, this meditation technique can also help him develop and utilize energy more effectively and perceptibly. With the blessing of this kind of training, Liang Yue's application of his mental power has now become more and more detailed. This net-like hammock woven from hair under him is a manifestation of his progress in controlling his own mental power, acting on the aspect of supernatural powers. In addition, with the improvement of his ability to control his own spirit, Liang Yue's perception of external things is also constantly improving, and this improvement is mainly manifested in mental power exploration, breath capture, and early warning of dangerous signs, which complements his own warrior role. Unfortunately, Liang Yue has not yet developed some offensive mental power application methods with his energy attributes that are many times higher than ordinary people, but he is not in a hurry at all. After all, a bright future is already within reach. Of course, the cultivation of any field requires a long process and requires a lot of time for persistent training. Cultivation is not a trivial matter, nor is it something that can be accomplished overnight. So, after taking the time to see the nameless sword manual refreshed in the mall, this guy immediately stopped the practice of the meditation technique without any psychological burden, because now his interest is in this sword manual, Sword Glow. This thing is actually a sign of entry into advanced swordsmanship in the records of this nameless sword manual, relying solely on the swordsman's own tacit understanding with his sword and spiritual communication. One can condense a sword glow out of thin air on the weapon, thereby increasing the power of swordsmanship. This statement sounds a bit fantasy. It looks like the sword immortal Tatsuya Oyoja, the method of controlling the sword with intention and shilly slow, purely using mental power to drive the sword in hand, directly skipping the warrior's reliance on internal force. However, he can control this sword across the sky, which belongs to the scope of the Xiangsha world. Although this nameless sword manual seems to be a little worse, it can also be guided by intention and spirit, so as to condense a sword glow on the blade. Awesome. However, sword glow is ultimately just sword glow. It is just a means of attack attached to the blade, combined with the sword, to increase the power of swordsmanship and increase the range and sharpness of the sword, but when it comes to actual combat, it still requires the actual application of the swordsman himself, like in demigods and semi-devils. Zhou Bufan, the sword body, practiced hard for 30 years and finally could form a half-foot-long sword glow on the blade. After feeling that his magical skills were completed, he began to call himself the sword god. The result, he bumped into Su Zhu, the protagonist of Xianlong, who was good at close-quarters boxing at the time, relying on the nearly 100 years of internal strength he had just obtained from Wu Aizi. A series of close-quarters short blows directly dismounted Zhou Bufan's sword. A body of sword glow became useless. The reason is that Su Zhu simply didn't leave him any room to display his sword glow or swordsmanship, and directly relied on his tyrannical internal strength to fight you in close combat. After a series of small capturing techniques and sticky clothes 18 falls, Zhou Bufan directly abandoned his sword and surrendered. And has since retired from the Jianghu, of course. In Liang Yue's view, this is purely because Zhou Jianshan himself has poor aptitude and a stupid brain. I am afraid that he has a swordsmanship cultivation that is in harmony with his heart, and a chest full of coquettish operations, but when it really comes to application, he can only fight those unknown miscellaneous soldiers. That's a full half-foot of sword glow. How long is a one-handed sword? It has increased such a large range out of thin air. Even a child holding a wooden stick knows to swing it a few more times, right? Chapter 218, The Unknown Sword Manual. Liang Yue Identity, Peak Haoshan Martial Artist. Inner Force. 35,000 Magic Power, Strength. 223 Agility. 241 Constitution. 230 Energy. 357 Bloodline, Human, Sealed, Talents, Vigorous Energy, Affinity, Fire Resistance, acquired from bathing in dragon blood, Ability, Hair Manipulation Skills, Language Mastery, Ricochet, Advanced Gun Mastery, Basic Swordsmanship, Observation, Magic Pattern, Erhu Mastery Abilities, Simple Tool Making, Mech Game Character, Reverse Joint Grappling Cultivation Methods, Golden Bell Cover, Primal Chaos Skill, Hang Shan Swordplay, Crossing the River on a Reed, Unnamed Meditation Technique, Desu Fist Forging Table, from the Forager world, can be used to forge and upgrade various gold coins, keys, bows and arrows, bottles, pickaxes, shovels, swords, amulets, boots, and gloves after being modified by the system. All craftable items have been unlocked. With sufficient materials, this series of equipment can be crafted. Selling price: 10,000 points. Forging table? Can make and upgrade a series of equipment. Awesome. I remember, I seem to have drawn a pickaxe before, which also seemed to be from this forager world. Infinite durability or something, can hide and knock, but the attack power is a bit weak. The key is that it's just the lowest level equipment. I asked the system at the time, and it said that mech tools couldn't be used to upgrade it, so I just threw it into the storage box. Now it can be used. Thinking of this, Liang Yue immediately withdrew from the instance in high spirits, strode out, and ran towards the ground with a grin. This wasn't him making a fuss about nothing, but the appearance of this forging table could indeed bring Liang Yue an almost leap-like improvement. Forager is a small game that integrates management, adventure, monster fighting, and leveling up. He used to play it for a while in his previous life, and it was the kind that you couldn't stop playing once you started in this game. The pickaxe is not only a tool for knocking stones and mining, but its attack power is also very outstanding. It's accurate with every hit when used to fight monsters. Moreover, in the later stages, it will be attached with various magical powers, such as flame burning, freezing, explosion, and so on. It can be said that although Forager is just a small game, it is often in these small games that some equipment with heaven-defying attributes are more likely to appear. For example, the shovel there can perform a range of digging and earth-moving. Gloves can increase attack speed. Boots can increase movement speed and evasion chance. Amulets can increase the amount of resources and materials obtained. Magic books can increase the amount of experience gained by a percentage, and so on. Among them, the most powerful is the sword, which is the main weapon in this game, because it can link with a pickaxe to produce an attack power superposition effect. Liang Yue remembered that after the pickaxe was upgraded to the top level, the attack power seemed to be 375, while the attack power of the top level demon sword was 250. But under the superposition of damage, the final attack power of the sword is actually 625, and the demon sword can automatically release fireballs and cause explosions. If it is combined with Liang Yue's current strength and agility, the effect will definitely be insane. However, equipment is always just equipment. At this stage, Even the most powerful equipment will eventually become obsolete, so what I should do now is to work hard to improve my cultivation level. This is the proper way. While reminding himself Liang Yue had already arrived at the village blacksmith shop, under the starry sky and the bright moonlight, illuminated by the brightly lit torches on the roadside. The moment 10,000 points disappeared, the forging table appeared in his storage space after finding a free corner in the shop and setting up a stone platform. With a thought, the forging table appeared on top. Judging from the appearance alone, the appearance of this forging table is almost exactly the same as the anvil in the mix system. With a gentle tap on this forging table, a forging catalog in the form of a light curtain suddenly appeared in front of him. An ordinary iron pickaxe. To upgrade to the next stage of gel pickaxe, needs to use 8 iron ingots. No problem, 8 pieces of wood, too easy. And then there are 4 slime balls. I have this thing too. It was after I killed these slimes that I merged with them. Rules alright. Next is, click forge. After completing the material filling, the iron pickaxe in Liang Yue's hand suddenly appeared on the forging table, and it kept sparking outwards below the forging table. There was also a progress bar in addition. The system was also very considerate in preparing a countdown to the completion of the forging for him: 23 hours 59 minutes 58 seconds. It actually takes a whole day. It's only a few seconds in the game, okay? Can't be too demanding. One day is one day, but it seems I won't be able to witness its completion. Sitting back a little helplessly, before Liang Yue could lament, a burst of footsteps came from behind him. Turning his head to look, the visitors were actually Jing Xiang Sensei, Zixu Sr., Takagi Saya, and Nan Rixiang, all 4 of them. Why are you here? Looking at their somewhat inquisitive figures, Liang Yue asked with a smile. We just saw you running here excitedly from upstairs. Did you get something good without telling us again? Takagi Saya walked in first at this time. Although she was saying this, the little girl's eyes were fixed on the forging table in the corner that was constantly splashing sparks. Yes. I just got this from the system store. Come over, I'll tell you about its usage. Saying that, Liang Yue beckoned the 4 girls over, opened the system store, and introduced them to the specific functions of the forging table. Now, he himself will soon be going to the new world to experience it. The task of forging and upgrading will naturally have to be entrusted to the girls to complete later. Another 3 days have passed. Tonight is the last free time before Liang Yue goes to the worlds of the heavens. During this time, Liang Yue still went to school leisurely during the day, and at night he would return to his apartment, which had been cleaned up by Shield, to continue to hide tonight. At this moment, when he is about to go to the worlds of the heavens, he even specially ran to the hotel and opened a room to live in. The purpose is to be able to be quiet and not be disturbed by some irrelevant people to his important affairs in these 3 days. Although Liang Yue still adhered to the previous rhythm of cultivation, soaking most of his time in the instance to absorb magic power. However, the cultivation of the unnamed meditation technique was temporarily put down by him. Because of the appearance of the nameless sword manual, the content of this sword manual is actually only a thin booklet, with a yellowish surface and curled corners among them. It is naturally impossible to carry the content of a complete advanced swordsmanship. In fact, in this sword manual, in addition to introducing the relevant information of sword energy and some insights on swordsmanship, there is only a set of seemingly ordinary swordsmanship left. This swordsmanship is probably the same as the Tai Chi sword practiced by the old men and women in the park in the previous life: slow, soft, and almost without any lethality. Liang Yue knew at a glance that this was not something used to kill enemies and win, but a precious method used to assist practitioners in researching sword energy and even swordsmanship. The whole set of swordsmanship is very figurative, and it is somewhat confusing to practice. Liang Yue was immediately confused by this thing when he first practiced it, but after a full 3 days of trying and exploring, he finally managed to find a little bit of the way in the cultivation of this set of swordsmanship. Energy factors such as ki and inner force are superfluous. The only attitude it emphasizes is to wholeheartedly integrate into the sword moves using one's own mental power as traction. The heart moves with the mind, and the sword in the hand is like painting in the air. It must be round and smooth, as if it is used by the arm. The sword is the person, and the person is the sword. The sword is just an extension of the human body. Not only must the heart and mind be in harmony, so that it can be used arbitrarily, but the spirit of the person using the sword must also be able to connect with the sword in hand without hindrance through the conduction of the arm. If one can truly do this, then in the case of the sword and the spirit being united, some magical changes will naturally occur on the blade. Sword energy is only the most basic and entry-level standard. Chapter 219 Contract Summoning Technique. Ling. The 4th trial of the Myriad Realms is now due. Host, do you wish to enter immediately? Still on the roof of the library, After hearing the system's prompt in his mind, Liang Yue waved to the 6 women on the table who were cracking pine nuts and playing poker. I'm leaving, take care of yourselves. After saying that, without waiting for a response from the others, he silently confirmed in his mind. Then, his entire being instantly vanished before the women. Ding. Command confirmed. Randomly selecting plane coordinates. The Myriad Realms plane the host will enter this time is the world of Kung Fu Cult Master. This plane, although the movie is quite exciting, with Jet Li and Liang Yue, isn't the energy level a bit low? System, still that almost completely static, zero-gravity space. Since the designated identity scroll on him hadn't been used yet, this indirectly bought Liang Yue some time. Ding. The host's current energy intensity is at the peak of the Haoshan stage. This plane is within the selection range. Host, do you wish to use the designated identity scroll? Don't use it, so that's how it's calculated? Then, my 4-dimensional physical stats are just a numerical indicator for unlocking system permissions? That's a bit too hardcore. Command confirmed. Plane transfer will continue. As the system's voice faded, a flash of light appeared before him. Liang Yue only felt his vision flicker for a moment before it instantly became bright and clear. Immediately afterward, a series of unfamiliar memories appeared out of nowhere. His mind involuntarily began to conjure up various images related to this information. The moment the information flow completely ended, the system's prompt sounded in his mind again. Ding. Identity information has been loaded. System tasks have been issued. Please check them in a timely manner. Host. Ding. This month's lottery benefits have been refreshed. Please check them. Host. Lottery first. I'll talk after the lottery. At this moment, Liang Yue only glanced at the somewhat desolate scene of the inn before him and didn't pay much attention to anything else. Although there were clearly several noble people dressed in extraordinary clothes and accompanied by guards around him, he was happy to be left alone since he was new to this place and no one was bothering him. As Liang Yue's voice fell in his mind, the familiar lottery wheel immediately popped up before him. But this guy didn't even look at it, grabbed a few peanuts from the table, put them in his mouth, and casually said, "Start." Stop. Ding. Congratulations, host. In this lottery, you have won the skill Contract Summoning Technique. This skill comes from a magical game plane and can randomly select a creature from the Myriad Realms to become the host's contracted summon. The summon can be upgraded, and there is a certain chance of evolution during the growth process. It cannot betray the host. However, the affection between master and servant will affect the degree of cooperation between the summon and the host. The contract summon is unique. After death, it needs to go through a cooldown period before it can be revived. The more powerful the species, the longer the cooldown time. Oh, it's a summon. Good stuff. Not bad. I really got something good this time. Hopefully, I can draw stronger battle pet for myself when the time comes. Speaking of which, what if I draw a person? The system didn't say I couldn't draw a person, did it? Just as Liang Yue was showing surprise because he had finally received something good from the system and unconsciously picked up the teacup on the table and took a sip at the staircase on the second floor diagonally opposite him, a pair of young men and women walked up at this moment. Almost the first time Liang Yue saw them, he had already recognized their identities. It was Jet Li and Liang Yue, to be precise. In this world of Kung Fu Cult Master, the identities of these two should be Zhang Wuji of Wudang and Xiao Zhao, the daughter of the purple-robed Dragon King. Has the plot already developed to this point? That's right, if he didn't grow up, I'd have to stay here for many years. In addition, leaving the Wudang sect with Xiao Zhao and successfully arriving at the inn shows that the current Zhang Wuji has already learned the 9 Yang divine skill according to the plot in the movie. These two should meet Zhao Min in the inn next, and then go to her. By the way, what is my mission this time? Saying that, Liang Yue stopped paying attention to the goddesses in front of him and summoned his mission panel with a thought. There are 3 main quests: expel the Tartars, restore the Han. Quest requirements: use any means necessary to help the rebel army drive the Yuan Mongol rule out of the Central Plains. The quest duration is 1 year. Quest rewards: 1,500 points, 1 extra lottery chance. The shorter the quest completion time, the more favorable the quest rewards will be for the host. Side quest: secret divine skills. Quest requirements: collect at least 3 martial arts manuals in this world that can be called divine skill level. Quest rewards: 1,000 points, a random martial arts gift box. After completing the quest requirements, each additional number of secret manuals will affect the quest rewards. Side quest: beyond the innate quest requirements, advance your cultivation realm to at least the innate level. Quest rewards: 1,000 points, a random innate insight within the martial arts system. Each time the host's cultivation realm is raised by one level, it will affect the quest rewards as expected of a quest after upgrading permissions. The rewards for this system quest are much more advanced than before. Expel the Tartars and restore the Han, secret divine skills, and also requirements for my own cultivation level. This is probably a change made by the system after I chose the martial arts evolution direction, but to be honest, these three quests don't seem to conflict much, but the order in which they are done needs to be carefully planned. Things related to the cultivation realm are not urgent, and can't be rushed. I was already at the peak of the Haoshan realm half a year ago. What I'm lacking now should just be an opportunity and a chance, so this can be put aside for now. The main quest, bluntly speaking, is asking me to let go and kill. This is not difficult, but I don't know if there are any other hidden experts in this world besides Zhang Sanfeng. If I get a hodgepodge of a group, then it might be a bit troublesome collecting divine skill manuals. This should be the task that should be placed in the priority sequence. Chapter 220. If life could only be like the first time we met. Before my mother passed away, the last thing she bought for me was candied hawthorns. After I was struck by the Zuanming palm, she gave me 3 candied hawthorns, telling me to eat one whenever I was in pain. When they passed away, you ate one. Yes, the remaining 2 have already dried out, but I will keep them safe. Young master, don't be sad. Now that the cold poison has been completely removed and you have gained unparalleled power, your parents in heaven will surely be happy for you. I'm just feeling sentimental at the sight of these things. But you're right, now that I possess unparalleled power, I naturally can't let them down in the future. I will definitely avenge them with my own hands, and I will become a pillar of strength so that they can be proud of me even in the afterlife. That's right, young master, when you were little. At this moment, Liang Yue, who was sitting aside, taking out the Yangtao wine from his storage space and drinking it by himself, couldn't help but chuckle as he listened to the young couple pouring out their hearts and sharing their tragic childhoods. With a turn of his gaze, he looked out at the bustling city streets. To be honest, Liang Yue was still very unfamiliar with the history of the Yuan dynasty. Of course, the key point was that he didn't specialize in studying this, and for this period of rule by the Mongol Yuan, Liang Yue's only impression was that the textbooks emphasized that the great Kublai Khan promoted the integration of multiple ethnic groups. Then, there were some high-sounding, dry, and unemotional objective descriptions. The general content was like how we view the rise and development history of the British Empire, which is a colonial history full of blood and tears, black slaves, trade, opium, wars, and other kinds of ugliness and greed. But in their own records, they mostly say that they objectively promoted the unification of the world market. Then, they also brought advanced civilization, advanced languages, advanced medical systems, educational systems, legal systems, etc., to backward areas. You can't say that this statement is wrong, but it is obviously too one-sided and beautified too much. Just like once, when Liang Yue was chatting with Elizabeth, he asked her, "What do you think your British Empire looks like in the eyes of the people of the world?" Then the blonde girl's answer was, "Gentlemen, rich, old power." Liang Yue then told her, "It's a shit stirrer." Then, Liang Yue was bitten on the neck by the blonde girl. "Hurry up and bring wine and dishes. Quick." "Yes, yes, yes, please wait a moment, sir." Just as Liang Yue was looking at the comings and goings outside the window, but the cautious street scene was slowly starting to become somewhat lost in thought, a burst of noise suddenly came from behind him. Turning his head to look, it turned out to be 4 extras dressed as martial arts figures. That's right, if we are late and miss this grand event of heroes encircling and annihilating the demon sect, it would be a pity. Yes, However, these people had only bragged for a few words when they were immediately interrupted by Xiaomin, who was in the next compartment, discussing the plan to encircle and annihilate Bright Peak and the 6 major sects with Cheng Kun, who was disguised as a Shaolin monk. "What if you make it in time? Isn't it just a few more people going to die? The Ming cult has the 4 guardian kings of purple, white, gold, and blue, and the indestructible 5 elements flags under their command. Just with you few small characters want to wipe them out? Stop dreaming." The contempt in her tone instantly angered the 4 extras who were shouting slogans loudly. The 4 of them immediately slammed the table, stood up angrily, and the leader, at this moment, was glaring at the white-clothed figure in the next compartment with a face full of anger, and shouted he must be a member of the demon sect. "Seize him first." Yes, as soon as he finished speaking, before they could start drawing their swords, 8 archers suddenly jumped out of the compartment. Swish! After a volley of arrows, the 4 extras immediately screamed and fell to the ground, the arrows hitting their vital points, and they became silent in the blink of an eye. If Liang Yue guessed correctly, These 8 people should be the 8 archers under Zhao Min's command, collectively known as the 8 heroes of divine arrows. At this moment, the white-clothed figure, who had been facing away from the crowd, slowly walked out from behind the hanging flag with steps carried an air of nobility, and although his face looked very young, every move exuded a contradictory sense of elegance and composure coupled with that fair and delicate face. And the composure of slowly walking out from the middle of the 8 subordinates who had just ruthlessly killed white-clothed fluttering, hair-crown need. At first glance, he really looked like a dashing young master of a chaotic world. Liang Yue was holding a spherical video recorder at this time, and timely recorded the scene in front of him. Looking at the stunning Zhao Min's male attire in the picture, a hint of regret flashed in his eyes, and then he couldn't help but shook his head anyway. They will all die in the end afterwards. Liang Yue also sighed with some emotion, and softly recited, if life were only as beautiful as the first meeting, why would the autumn breeze sadly wave the painted fan, casually changing the old heart? Yet saying that the old heart is easily changed. The Lishan Mountain words ended halfway through the clear night. The tears and rain of Lingling finally without resentment. How can it compare to the ungrateful brocade-clad young man, the wish for the conjoined branches and wings on that day? Ha 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 ha. Having said that, this fellow smiled and put the round recording device into his wide sleeves. Looking up, he saw that everyone on the second floor of the inn, whether ordinary diners, Zhao Min in white, or Zhang Wuji and Xiao Zhao, who were hiding behind the door frame, were all looking at him at this moment. Some people were savoring the poem, some were pondering it, and some just felt that the poem he recited was somewhat profound and impressive. Then, the first to speak was Zhao Min, who was fanning herself with a folding fan across from him at this moment. Her face was flushed with a radiant glow, and her bright eyes contained a hint of a smile that was not quite a smile as she looked at him and said, "Little Taoist priest, this is not the place for you to show off. Your writing is not bad, but it's a pity it's not appropriate for the occasion." Liang Yue thought, when it's really appropriate, you'll probably cry to death. Let's decide on the matter of Bright Summit like this. There are too many people here, so this monk will take his leave at this time. A masked monk behind Zhao Min in white slowly approached and bowed to her softly. Just at this moment, another burst of footsteps came from the stairs, and then 2 people with copper crutches and a fierce aura slowly walked up. One of the 2 had disheveled hair and a tiger-like face, holding a deer-head crutch in his hand, while the other had fierce eyebrows and a cunning face, holding a crane-head copper staff. If Liang Yue guessed correctly, these 2 should be Zhao Min, or rather, the highest combat power under Prince Ru's command. The Zuanming elders. He didn't remember their specific names, only that one was known in the martial world as Deer Staff Guest, and the other was called Crane Pan Wang. The 2 brothers have been inseparable for many years since they entered the martial world. They cooperate very well with each other and have a notorious reputation in the martial arts world. As soon as he saw these 2, Zhang Wuji, who had been keeping a low profile and hiding behind the door frame, immediately became excited, clenching his fists and with hatred in his eyes. If it weren't for Xiao Zhao pulling him back, he would have rushed up now, but thinking about it, it's normal. After all, they are enemies of many years. Ever since he was hit hard by the Zuanming palm as a child, Zhang Wuji had to endure the erosion of the cold poison in his body every day for more than 8 years, agonizing in painful torment every time the cold poison attacked. He would probably grit his teeth with hatred for these Zuanming elders in his heart if it weren't for the fact that he had the great master Zhang Sanfeng by his side, who would constantly accumulate internal energy for him every day to suppress the cold poison. This young man might have been frozen into an ice cube and died miserably in some corner. Frankly speaking, if this matter were to happen to Liang Yue, even if he was just an ordinary person, he would definitely try to kill these 2 people by any means. If he also possessed Zhang Wuji's current 9 Yang divine skill, and also had the profound internal energy that Zhang Sanfeng had continuously accumulated for more than 8 years, he would definitely choose to rush up and kill them at the first opportunity. As the saying goes, a gentleman doesn't hold a grudge overnight. Any grudges should be avenged on the same day. It seems that this Zhang Wuji is not a gentleman, and his scheming is also somewhat deep. Liang Yue placed his hands flat on the table at this time, resting his chin on them, his eyes constantly scanning back and forth over the group of people around him, watching the excitement with great interest. However, he had no intention of taking action, because it was far from the right time. Mr. Dear greetings, young master. Master, we will leave the matter of Bright Summit to you. It's easy to say please give my regards to the emperor for this monk. I'll take my leave. Young master, do you know them? Of course. It was they who injured me with a Zuanming palm 8 years ago. I can't wait to. Don't be impulsive, they have so many experts. Be careful, you'll be outnumbered. What's all the noise about? Who's hiding there? Come out!" With an angry shout, dear staff guest immediately turned his gaze, scanned Liang Yue who was lying beside him, and then aimed at Zhang Wuji and Xiao Zhao behind the door. "What are you doing sneaking around there?" Seeing that they were just a young couple, the old man's face was still gloomy, and then he walked over step by step with his dear head staff, continuing with a look of condescension and coercion. "Brat. What are you looking at?" Zhang Wuji clenched his fists tightly at this time, but tried his best to maintain his composure on his face, remaining silent. "This kid looks a little familiar." Crane Pan Wang stood beside Xiaomin in white at this time, with a strange look on his face. Liang Yue could naturally feel the solemn atmosphere at the scene at this time. Although Zhang Wuji was lowering his head slightly, he was secretly mobilizing his internal energy, ready to attack at any time. However, in the end, Xiaomin, the person with the highest status in the field, lightly resolved the conflict with a single sentence: "Forget it, they're just a young couple talking about love there, let's go." After saying that, Xiaomin in white led the crowd downstairs before her figure disappeared completely. She also turned her head and glanced at Liang Yue, who was leisurely lying on the table with a faint smile on his face. Her face suddenly showed a slight surprise, but Xiaomin's footsteps did not stop. Chapter 221 The Great Shift. After leaving the inn, Liang Yue didn't continue following Xiaomin, or Zhang Wuji and Xiao Zhao. His mission for this experience didn't include guarding, so naturally, he wouldn't particularly care about the life or death of certain people. His urgent task now was to collect all kinds of martial arts manuals that could be considered secret techniques. Liang Yue's first chosen target was the Ming cult's ultimate skill, the Great Shift of the Universe, but besides that, the Great Shift of the Universe seemed to also involve the use of internal force, and even the way to change attributes. This was very remarkable. There were also rumors that this divine skill had many functions, including stimulating and developing the maximum potential of the human body, integrating the principles of martial arts, copying the opponent's martial arts, creating flaws in the opponent, accumulating strength, sticking to palm power, guiding and shifting the enemy's strength, converting yin and yang energies, using force against force, and so on. It sounded incredible, and its origin was even more inconclusive. One said it originated from the Persian Ming cult headquarters, and another said it was created by Ho Wongshan, the founder of the Ming cult. Of course, before officially seeing the specific content of this technique, it was too early to say anything. The reason why Liang Yue chose the Great Shift of the Universe as the first target of his search mission was that this technique existed within the forbidden area of the Ming cult. According to the original description, the Ming cult's ultimate skill was originally recorded on a parchment scroll, which could only be revealed with blood. After Zhang Wuji finished practicing it, he should have put it away. However, in the current movie world, the mental cultivation method of the Great Shift of the Universe was engraved on several stone slabs in the secret passage of the Ming cult, and after mastering it, Zhang Wuji, that scheming boy, directly blew them up. According to his own thoughts, Liang Yue didn't intend to intervene too much in the plot if it wasn't necessary. Therefore, he had to enter the secret passage of the Ming cult before Zhang Wuji. Besides, cultivating the mental cultivation method of this Great Shift of the Universe didn't seem to take much time. This was what was written on the technique itself. This technique focuses on internal cultivation. Ordinary people need to practice for 30 years, while experts who have opened up the Ren and Du meridians only need 3 hours to complete it. Liang Yue, as a peak-level master of the acquired realm, had already had all the 8 extraordinary meridians in his body, including various small meridians, opened up and connected with the help of dragon blood, running through the great cycle of meridians in the human body. The Ren and Du meridians were naturally included. What he needed now was just an opportunity and chance to allow his spirit to communicate with the heavens and earth, so as to absorb more advanced energy substances from the natural world. At that time, Liang Yue could become a genuine innate level martial arts master. Those two lovebirds are walking too slowly. They're just strolling around like they're on vacation. How can they be as fast as Master Cheng Kun? Taking out the spherical camera again, Liang Yue then lowered his head and hurried on his way. While searching for the whereabouts of this bald donkey on the screen, relying on the camera's monitoring range of up to 10 kilometers, he quickly found Master Cheng, who was trotting on horseback, in front of a cloud of dust outside the small city heading west. It seems that the 6 major sects have already reached the vicinity of Kunlun Mountain at this time. By the way, since we're talking about Kunlun Mountain, it seems that there are 2 divine skills hidden in that mountain range known as the ancestor of all mountains. Right, the one-finger skill is in Ziwu Manor. As for the 9 Yang manual, after the fireworker monk finished practicing it, he didn't seem to take the 9 Yang manual away. In the end, Xiao Xiangzi and Yin Caxi stole this technique from the Shaolin Temple, so when Master Zhuang left his inheritance, Zhang Sanfen, Guo Xiang, and another Shaolin disciple each learned 1/3, although the time is slightly off. That's roughly the outline. In the current movie world, the scenes of Xiwu Manor have been reduced, and Zhang Wuji didn't obtain the secret manual in the Kunlun Secret Valley. Instead, after falling off a cliff behind Wudang Mountain, he was taught the complete 9 Yang manual by the fire worker monk, plus a body of power. But that Kunlun Secret Valley should still be there, but to find it, you must find the location of Xiwu Manor. This shouldn't be difficult, right? However, the timing for me to set off to find these 2 divine skill manuals should be postponed a bit, because after the siege of Bright Peak, the remaining forces of the 6 major sects should be captured by Zhao Min using the 10 fragrant tendon softening powder. Then, by the way, she will also send troops to sweep the mountain gates of the 6 major sects. At that time, the 4 great skills and 72 unique skills of Shaolin Temple, the Zixa divine skill of the Huishan school, and the swordsmanship, etc., including Abyss Extermination's Heaven-Reliant sword, should all belong to me. Speaking of that Heaven-Reliant sword, besides hiding the 9 Yin manual, it seems to also contain the lifelong knowledge of Guo Jing and Wang Rong, including the dragon subduing 18 palms. Then there's the beggar clan's other ultimate skill, the dog-beating staff technique, which is probably also found inside. If that's the case, little Taoist, what are you holding in your hand? Hand it over to this grandpa. Just as Liang Yue was burying his head on his way, looking at the surveillance images in his hand, and planning his route for this trip in his mind, a strange and violent shout suddenly came from the road ahead. Suddenly, Liang Yue was awakened. Looking up, it turned out to be a burly man wearing scaled armor. Judging from his attire, he shouldn't be an ordinary soldier. Behind him, there were dozens of soldiers standing neatly, all holding spears, long knives at their waists, or carrying bows and arrows. Their military discipline was strict, blocking the entire street tightly. They just happened to be blocking his way out of the city. Something wrong. Seeing this, Liang Yue frowned and said to the burly soldier, who knew that the big man's hairy face immediately sank upon hearing this, and he raised his hand, pointed at his nose and began to scold, "Bold Han dog! This officer is talking to you, how dare you not hear?" You bang! Before he could finish speaking, this man instantly received a heavy kick from Liang Yue, accompanied by a series of cracking sounds of bones. The big man, who claimed to be a captain, was immediately knocked away, spitting blood wildly, and also knocking away 7 or 8 soldiers behind him. And since he had already made a move, Liang Yue would naturally not be polite. With a flick of his sleeve, a long sword was held in his hand, and at the same time, he saw this fellow tapping his feet, and the whole person instantly followed a path smashed out by the big man, breaking into the military formation. Then twist the waist, spin, swing the sword, buzz, accompanied by a crisp sword sound. A snow bright circular sword energy suddenly bloomed in the center of the military formation. Wherever it passed, all the soldiers on the street were instantly divided into 2. The aftermath of the sword energy even affected the shops on both sides of the street to a great extent, instantly scraping off a layer of stone powder, leaving a slender sword mark on it. Swish! Immediately afterwards, a large amount of blood spurted into the sky, and the bloody smell began to permeate the surrounding area. Liang Yue then put away his sword, and continued to hold the spherical recorder in his hand, stepping on the limbs and corpses all over the street, and walked forward unhurriedly. Silently, a layer of Zhanki shield suddenly rose on his body, blocking the falling large amount of blood rain. After a few breaths, this shield even spread out in all directions in an instant, bouncing all the blood away. Clap clap clap! Young hero, what a brilliant skill! I wonder if you could do me the honor of coming up and sharing a drink with this young master. At this moment, a burst of applause suddenly came from his upper left. Liang Yue looked up and saw that the speaker was none other than Zhao Min in white. In addition, the Zuanming elders, the 8 heroes of divine arrows and others were also impressively present. It was just that at this moment, their gazes towards Liang Yue were full of vigilance and precaution. No need. When we meet again, we will probably be enemies. Looking at Zhao Min, who was standing on the city gate tower at this moment, with a hint of expectation in her eyes, Liang Yue smiled slightly and replied, "Oh. So what you said before, if only life could be like the first time we met, is what you meant?" Upon hearing this, Zhao Min in white immediately showed a bit of surprise and amusement on her face. The 8 heroes of divine arrows behind her were even more, drawing their bows and aiming their arrows at various vital points on his body. Liang Yue's answer to this was just a few emotionless chuckles. Hey young hero, with your superb martial arts skills, why seek your own death and be an enemy of my great Yuan dynasty? Don't you know the principle of hitting a stone with an egg? As soon as Zhao Min finished speaking, Liang Yue had already walked into the city gate tower below them when his figure walked out of the gate. His voice also floated faintly through the internal force amplification, reaching everyone's ears. The Yuan dynasty is divided into 4 classes. Mongolians are the first class. Simu people are the second class. Han people are the third class. Southerners are the fourth class. Princess, please take care, the days of great chaos in the world are not far away. Chapter 222 Behemoth. Come out, my hero. Oh, no, my battle pet. Releasing the contract summoning technique was very simple. After all, this was an ability that Liang Yue had drawn. With just a thought, a circular magic circle with a radius of about 5 meters immediately appeared on the sandy, wind-swept desert in front of him. This magic circle took shape instantly, using magic power as lines, with complex runes inscribed on it, and a faint earthy yellow glow emanating from it. But on this wind-swept desert, it seemed a bit inconspicuous. After only lasting for about 3 seconds, the magic circle shattered with a bang, turning into starlight and dissipating into nothingness in its place. Only a small monkey with gray-brown fur was left. To be precise, it should be a baby monkey. In the myriad worlds, there are many powerful monkeys, but my current level is too low. So it's unlikely that I'll summon those big shots. But if it's just an ordinary monkey, this little guy doesn't seem like one either. Looking at the little monkey not far in front of him, who didn't seem to understand the situation and was scratching his scalp with his sharp claws, a look of confusion in his eyes, Liang Yue subconsciously squatted down and reached out his hands to Squeak. Upon seeing this, the little guy hesitated for a moment, then stood up on its hind legs and waddled towards him. Don't underestimate this little monkey. It looks like it was just born. Even standing on the ground, it's only about a foot tall, but some things are often destined from birth. Looking at its short but thick and powerful limbs, the sharp claws at the ends of its hands and feet, and the slightly protruding mouth with fangs that were already beginning to show, a pair of big eyes that were particularly bright. Frankly speaking, although this little monkey looked a bit ugly at first glance, Liang Yue could faintly sense that it should have an extraordinary origin. Reaching out, he stroked the somewhat messy fur on the little one's head, and then Liang Yue hugged it into his arms. Who knew that this little guy seemed to be very restless? After struggling a few times, it jumped directly from his arms onto his shoulder. Then, one claw held onto his ear, and the other claw shielded its eyes. Looking around at the surrounding desert, whoosh! Unfortunately, a surge of wind and sand came, seemingly blowing into the little guy's eyes. After squeaking a few times, it hid back in his arms. Sniff! It has a dusty smell on its body. It doesn't smell like a monkey that lives in trees. Liang Yue sniffed the little guy and immediately made this judgment. But besides the famous monkeys like the Great Sage, the ones with a little bit of fame, could this little thing be from a Chinese odyssey? The monkeys there seem to be popular for a while. System, please check by yourself. Host. Alright. After putting the little guy into the front of his clothes, Liang Yue once again took out the spherical camera and glanced at it on the screen. Master Chang, who had already been marked by him, was now riding a horse, trotting 7 or 8 kilometers away. Upon seeing this fellow waved his hand and summoned a pure black, tall horse from the stronghold world. After putting on the tack, he jumped on the horse's back. He just hung far behind, chasing slowly along the way. Level 1 talent abilities: tenacious life, intelligence, mimicry, strength, agility, paralytic toxin, combat instinct, combat skills, scratching, biting. At this time, looking at the information popping up on the light screen in front of him, Liang Yue narrowed his eyes, then subconsciously stroked the little guy in his arms, a satisfied smile curving at the corners of his mouth. He hen-eyed Squeak. Are you hungry? Through the contract connection with this little guy, even without using the language proficiency skill, Liang Yue could understand what his battle pet was saying. Alright, I'll get you something to eat. By the way, do you eat meat? Raw or cooked? Squeak, meat with blood. Little guy, you're quite fierce. Is this piece of meat okay? Listening to the little monkey's words, a smile flashed across Liang Yue's face. After thinking for a moment, he flipped his sleeve and took out a large piece of meat about 10 centimeters square from a secret storage box in the stronghold world. Although it had been cut into neat squares, the meat was still twitching slightly after it appeared, and the color of the meat remained bright red, containing a considerable degree of activity. This was exactly the dragon meat that Jinxiang Sensei and the others had dissected from Smog back when he was in the Hobbit world. Squeak, the little guy in his arms immediately became excited the moment he saw the meat, waving his 2 claws constantly in the air, making eager cries from his mouth. Upon seeing this, Liang Yue stuffed the meat into its hands, letting the little guy devour it greedily. He urged the mount under him and chased forward. Speaking of which, should I give you a name? How about calling you Hoo-Hoo, Ash, Squeak? Squeak doesn't sound good. Then, how about Hoodao, Ash Bean, Squeak? Squeak still doesn't sound good. Then how about calling you Wukong, aware of emptiness? Squeak, don't understand the meaning. That's the name of a big shot, a famous figure in your monkey clan. Squeak, Squeak don't recognize him. Of course, you don't recognize him. Actually, I'm not too familiar with him either. Squeak, Squeak, alright, if you don't like that, then let's change it again. How about calling you King Kong? The meaning of ultimate strength, ultimate steel, ultimate purity, ultimate truth, moving forward without hesitation, indomitable. Squeak, Squeak, decided this one? No changes. Squeak, 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 okay then little guy, your name will be King Kong from now on. Looking at the little monkey in his arms, who had been fooled by his words, Liang Yue's heart suddenly surged with a sense of intellectual superiority. Squeak, Squeak, you've already finished such a big piece of meat. Squeak, Squeak, want more? No, you're still young, so don't overeat for now. Digest it for a while, and we'll eat together again tonight. Ouch, look at you, monkey, with your dirty claws. You've stained my collar black. Get down, wash your hands first. As he spoke, Liang Yue immediately dismounted, flipped his sleeve, and with a few snaps, piled up a rectangular stone trough in the desert in front of him. He poured a bucket of infinite water into it, and it immediately began to flow out. Then, Liang Yue put the little monkey on the stone and began to wash its greasy claws. The big black horse on the side also came over at this time, lowered its head, and drank water. Upon seeing this, Liang Yue simply took off the lasso from its mouth, and then took out a big red apple and stuffed it into the horse's mouth. Squeak, Squeak, you want to eat too? Alright, I didn't expect you behemoth giant beasts to be omnivores. Hey, King Kong, what are you doing? Squeak, Squeak, damn. So contract battle beasts also poop. Squeak, Squeak. A moment later, Liang Yue pursed his lips and carefully pushed a pile of dirt with his foot, burying the pile of feces that was emitting a pungent smell. The smell was so strong that even the big black horse next to him unconsciously retreated 7 or 8 meters, occupied the upwind slope, and stared from afar. Then, Liang Yue looked at the little monkey, who was now opening his arms to him, wanting to crawl back into his clothes, and rubbed his temples. He subconsciously took out the spherical camera, looked at Master Chang, who was still within a controllable range on the screen, and said, forget it, since we're cleaning, let's just wash thoroughly. As he spoke, Liang Yue began to rummage through boxes, searching with his mind, and finally found a bottle of pet-specific shower gel from a box in the Stronghold world. This thing was what he had specially bought back then for Rachel and her hawk cubs, who knew that they wouldn't appreciate it at all, so it had been accumulating in the storage box. Come brother, we'll give you a bath now. Squeak, Squeak, stop struggling, you're stinky all over. I don't know how long it's been since you took a bath, you might even have lice. Squeak, Squeak, objection overruled. You have to take a bath diligently and be clean from now on. Squeak, 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 don't move. If you're not used to it, then get used to it as soon as possible. You'll get used to it when you develop the habit. Chapter 223, Interrogation of Prisoners. As night fell, Liang Yue finally arrived at the periphery of the 6th major sect's encampment, after a journey of stops and starts, following Cheng Kun during the journey, whether it was due to the so-called 100 forged martial artists' intuition or not. Even though he had maintained a safe distance, Grandmaster Cheng seemed to sense that someone was following him from certain clues, so, when passing through a complex, rocky valley, he directly turned his horse around and weaved back and forth through the valley's intricate paths several times. In the end, he even abandoned his horse. It wasn't until more than an hour later that he was confident he had shaken off his pursuer. And then he used his King Kong to get back on the right path. During this time, Liang Yue simply sat in a wind-sheltered cave, watching through the spherical camera as the other party ran back and forth like a madman, constantly dashing, hiding, and even ambushing. In the process, he also conveniently collected the bald donkey's abandoned horse into his stronghold world. In short, after obtaining the little King Kong, this behemoth war pet with immense potential, Liang Yue was in a good mood, so he showed great patience with the other party's behavior. The 6 major sects were encamped in an abandoned town, ravaged by wind and sand. From the town's buildings, one could vaguely see its former prosperity after dark. Liang Yue did not relax his observation of the 6 major sects' people in the camp. He continued to hold the camera in his hand, watching their movements from inside a cave. According to the plot, the leaders of the 6 major sects should be sitting together at this time, discussing the plan to attack Bright Peak, right? Green Wingbat King Wei Yixio should also appear soon. Wait? Why do the people of the 6 major sects look a little short? Could it be that they haven't all arrived yet? That's right. Because of the limited space in the movie plot, a scene transition might represent 3 or 2 days, 10 days, or even 10 years in the real world now. Let me count. These are a group of bald-headed monks. The Shaolin Temple people should have arrived. The other group wearing khaki-colored clothes. I don't know what organization they are, but there's a high probability it's the Kunlun sect. After all, they're so close. These people over here, wearing red clothes and cloth hats, seem to be from the Kangtong sect. These people wearing blue-black Taoist robes should be from Mount Hua. That is to say, the Wudang and Amity sects haven't arrived yet. This is just as Liang Yue was estimating the current situation in his mind. On the Emperor's perspective screen in his hand, a group of more than 100 people suddenly appeared from the side of the 6 major sects camp, and then silently surrounded the entire camp. They slowly lurked, beginning to break into the camp, acting suspiciously. It seemed that these people did not belong to the 6 major sects camp. After successively solving several 6 major sects disciples through sneak attacks and assaults, their whereabouts were finally completely exposed. Immediately afterwards, the two sides launched a fierce fight. Even in the face of the silent picture, Liang Yue could faintly feel their deep hatred for each other during the process. People were constantly wounded and falling to the ground, but in general, a disciple of the 6 major sects could often fight or even kill 3 to 5 Ming cult disciples in a head-on confrontation, and the leadership masters of the 6 major sects performed even more fiercely, especially the bald donkeys of Shaolin Temple. Even if the several monks wearing kasayas did not take action, the remaining masters could already take on 10 or more enemies. Moreover, they were all suppressing the many Ming cult members in the fight. Several clever Ming cult followers, seeing the situation was bad, immediately ran away. Although they were caught up by the 6 major sects pursuers in the process of escaping, and a wave of survivors were taken away. There were still a few people who successfully broke through and disappeared into the wind and sand. Seeing this, Liang Yue's mouth suddenly curved into a smile. Then he immediately got up, carried the little King Kong, who was biting fiercely at a dragon bone, in his arms, took the torch, and hurried out of the cave. About a quarter of an hour later, Liang Yue reappeared in another cave. He stuck the torch on the cave wall, and then threw the figure he was carrying on the ground. This was one of the Ming cult followers who had escaped from the 6 major sects earlier. With a clang sound of metal rubbing, a bright sword blade had already deeply pierced in front of the person's face, and then Liang Yue directly and simply said, "I ask, you answer. If you satisfy me, I'll give you a quick death." After speaking, he squatted down in front of this person, but looking at the other party's almost unresponsive, indifferent face, this guy knew that this person would definitely not obediently submit. Don't want to talk? Want to act like a hero in the last stage of your life? It doesn't matter. I've long expected your religious followers to think this way, so I've prepared some tools in advance. As he spoke, a sinister smile rose on Liang Yue's face. With a flip of his sleeve, a well-crafted wooden box was placed on the ground. Guess what this is? This guy then didn't wait for the other party to answer, and pulled the box cover to both sides with his hands, slowly revealing a whole row of neatly arranged tools inside. There were small hammers, small knives, tweezers, cutting knives, pliers, files, small blades with curved openings on one side. In short, they were all kinds of strange and somewhat creepy. Under the light of the fire, they reflected a shimmering brilliance. The Ming cult follower, who had been expressionless, suddenly widened his eyes, and a trace of fear began to rise in his eyes. "It doesn't matter if you don't know, I'll use them on your body one by one, and you'll feel it yourself then. Don't worry, I have plenty of time to play with you. If 1 hour isn't enough, we'll do it all night. You've already been hit by my unique skill Meridian Severing Hand. Now your whole body is sore and weak, and you can't resist at all. I advise you to speak up sooner rather than later. Anyway, you'll have to say it sooner or later, so why suffer the pain of flesh and blood?" Looking at the other party's body, which had already begun to tremble slightly, this guy was immediately happy, and then continued, "So, where on your body should we start?" As he spoke, Liang Yue pretended to be troubled, scanning this person's body back and forth. Then, in the other party's hurried breathing, he grabbed one of his feet. "Let's start with your feet first. So you can't run away completely." After saying that, he took off his shoes, pulled off his socks all in one go. However, what immediately appeared in front of Liang Yue was actually a small foot, wide and tender, and even a little delicate, So you're a woman. Seeing this, Liang Yue immediately raised his head, his gaze scanning up and down the other party's somewhat rough face. Then, in the Ming cult follower's terrified gaze, he reached out and grabbed her hat, throwing it aside. A macy head of hair suddenly fell down, faintly carrying a hint of floral fragrance. Raising the other party's chin, he touched the back of her tear-streaked face back and forth, and sure enough, he quickly found a faintly protruding interface, gently tearing it outwards. A delicate small face was immediately revealed underneath. I thought you were a poker face before, but it turns out you were just wearing a mask. Looking at the pitiful and obviously young and tender pretty face in front of him, Liang Yu's face also showed a playful smile for a moment. Now seeing that you are a woman, and also young, I'll change the previous conditions. As long as you answer my questions, I'll let you go. How about that? Don't even think about it. I will not betray the divine cult. The girl no longer pretended to be mute at this time. After slowly sitting up from the ground, a pear blossom-like face suddenly showed a bit of determination, and she scolded herself. Oh ho! Your little mouth is quite stubborn, huh? I just don't know how long you can last in my hands. As Liang Yue spoke, the expression on his face slowly began to become expressionless. He gently pinched two fingers together, and a sharp knife suddenly appeared in his palm. Then this guy reached out and put the blade next to the other party's cheek. The cold and sharp touch immediately made the little girl's body tense, and she couldn't help but scream in horror. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 224, Mingjiao Secret Passage. Hairhead hell. Thank you, little sister. I knew a girl as young as you wouldn't be able to keep a secret. Humph. You just wait. I will never let you get away with this. Not let me get away with it. Having a little beauty like you thinking about me all day. I couldn't be happier. Shameless. My father will definitely avenge me. Hairhead, go home quickly. It's getting late. You're too young to be running around fighting. Your father must be worried sick. Humph. Don't think saying that will stop me from hating you. If you don't leave, I might change my mind. You're such a villain. Bah, you just wait. Watching the figure in front, twisting her behind and kicking her legs hard on the ground, running forward quickly, Liang Yue chuckled and shook his head, then turned and went back into the cave. Yang Buhu, what a coincidence! With a flip of his sleeve, the spherical camera instantly appeared in his hand, and then his gaze fixed on the departing little girl without blinking. After she turned into a narrow stone valley path, Liang Yue was silent for a moment, then picked up little King Kong, who was rolling around at his feet, used his hair manipulation ability to flick off the dust on its body, and then walked out of the cave. He just hung far behind the little girl, following her slowly. Before Liang Yue had bluffed this missive Ming cult with a set of professional foot care tools, but after he learned her identity, he didn't dare to believe the information he had extracted from her mouth. So, after a series of rambling questions that left her confused, he simply let the little girl go anyway. According to the records in the original book, the Ming cult's secret passage has two entrances, or rather, two sides, one in and one out, forming a complex escape route. One is the forbidden area shown in the movie, which was almost trampled to pieces by Cheng Kun, Zhang Wuji, and Xiao Zhao. Originally, Liang Yue wanted to enter from here and capture the survivors of Ming cult, the purpose of which was to extract the path to the forbidden area from their mouths. There was no way, even though in the movie, the villains and the protagonists seemed to be able to find it easily. It was only because they were all insiders. You should know that the Ming cult's Guangming Peak main altar is located in the Kunlun Mountains, which is known as the ancestor of all mountains in China, with extremely complex terrain. And the Ming cult's forbidden area, also known as the escape route, is also the retreat place of the past leaders, as well as the location of the tombs. Such an important place must be hidden very secretly, and it is naturally quite difficult for ordinary people to find it. Fortunately, Liang Yue didn't expect that the little girl he had casually captured was actually the daughter of Yang Xiao, the current acting leader of Ming cult. If he remembered correctly, the other entrance to the secret passage seemed to be hidden under the bed in Yang Buhu's boudoir. So, what I need to do now is to follow this little girl and then go all the way to Guangming Peak. At that time, I don't even need to enter the Ming cult's main altar. As long as I figure out the location of her residence, I can probably judge the location of the secret passage. He looked up at the sky above his head and found that the crescent moon had already risen above the middle of the sky in the hazy sandstorm. Although in the current worlds, the moon's trajectory may not be able to maintain a completely opposite orbit to the sunlight in the base world, but to a certain extent, it can still prove that the night is already very deep. A moment later, with a whistling of the wind, a flurry of snowflakes suddenly fell from the sky, dancing all over the sky, looking like pear petals filing the sky. Liang Yue walked among them, staring at the frost and the bright moonlight, and couldn't help but marvel at the unpredictable climate of the desert land. Little King Kong in his arms was also very curious about this, and then climbed onto his shoulder, waving its claws and constantly scratching at the falling snowflakes. Moreover, after going up the mountain, Liang Yue found a hidden crack in the rocks, took out his iron pickaxe, and began to resume his old profession of drilling holes underground. After another half an hour, he had crossed layers of guards and followed a little girl to the interior of Guangming Peak. At this time, he was hiding inside the side wall of a well, constantly observing the environment on the ground through the spherical camera in his hand. What a paradise! I didn't expect that a natural freshwater lake was hidden on the back mountain of Guangming Peak, and it seems to be quite large, but that's right. After all, this is the Ming cult's lair. If there weren't some decent natural conditions, who would choose this god-forsaken place as a base? That little girl stopped. The handsome old man in front of her, it seems like he should be her father, right? Otherwise, who in the entire Ming cult could train her into such a ghostly appearance? Oh, the little girl laughed. She went back to her room. That side, is that a boudoir? Liang Yue stroked his chin while muttering to himself with some uncertainty. Then, he took out the iron pickaxe again and began to dig downwards towards the direction where Yang Yue, who was located. Little King Kong in his arms was very quiet at this time, always nestled inside his clothes, curled up, a little wary and a little curious about this way of digging and sneaking in underground. After becoming Liang Yue's contracted summon beast, this little guy naturally received the gospel of the system, and to a certain extent, it seemed that it benefited even more than Liang Yue, the master in the rules of Mick. It inherited most of them. In addition, it also had the ability to accumulate experience and upgrades. You should know that this is a serious upgrade, not Liang Yue's current kind of knockoff that can only be used as an experience storage and then used to deal with enchantment consumption. With each level up, this little guy will get different degrees of enhancement. With a bloodline of behemoth, the magnitude of this enhancement will obviously not be too small. To be honest, Liang Yue is really envious of little King Kong's way of growing up and is very much looking forward to its growth. Bang bang bang. Oh, dug through under this little girl, there really is a passage, and judging from this, it has been built for a long time. Liang Yue held up the torch, looking at the deep ladder leading to the underground, and was immediately overjoyed. He turned around and sealed the path he had come from, then looked back at the partition above that led directly to Yang Yue's bedside, and the corners of his mouth curled up unconsciously. Then, he began to walk down the passage as Ming cult's last resort escape route. The underground passage in front of him was obviously a project of considerable scale, and it was no exaggeration to call it an underground palace. According to the records in the original book, this passage had almost hollowed out a certain area of the entire Guangming Peak. The plan that Cheng Kun and Zhao Ming had discussed before, to encircle and annihilate Guangming Peak and the 6 major sects, most of it was to use this passage space to fill it with explosives, and then blow those martial arts people who were fighting endlessly to the sky. Although this plan was later exposed to Yang Xiao, the 5 Wanderers, etc., due to Zhang Wuji's timely appearance, and was not able to be implemented successfully. It also sheltered a group of Ming cult followers later. Unlike the 6 major sects, they were not encircled and annihilated by the Imperial Army and were captured miserably. I heard that this underground passage is intricate and full of various mechanisms. If you take a wrong step, you will fall into an irreversible situation. But why haven't I seen anything? Stopping and going along the way, building bridges when encountering water, and opening roads when encountering walls. Soon, Liang Yue had smoothly arrived at a spacious, Persian-style secret room hall, which was now illuminated by the firelight. Looking at the 2 skeletons sitting upside down on the stone platform at the head of the hall, Liang Yue scratched his head in confusion. This should be Yang Dingshan, the legendary former leader of Ming cult, and the leader's wife who gave him a green hat for 3 full years, right? Then, he lightly swept a piece of tattered cloth and thick dust in front of them with his foot, and a line of iron hooked silver strokes immediately appeared before his eyes. The destined person who enters this stone room should kneel and kowtow 3 times and 9 times before the remains, otherwise, the wrong souls will entangle and the misery will be unspeakable. Looking at this horizontally left word, Liang Yue immediately rolled his eyes. Chapter 225. Luck is with me. Thump thump thump. He raised his foot and stomped 3 times in front of the inscription, mimicking someone kneeling and kowtowing, with measured steps, neither too fast nor too slow as expected. With those 3 stomps, Liang Yue sensed something unusual beneath the floor. as if he had triggered some kind of mechanism. Immediately following a nearly imperceptible sound of gears turning, 6 large stone slabs suddenly fell from the top of the Persian-style hall's stone door crevices, sealing all entrances and exits. After the dust settled, Liang Yue focused his eyes. Engraved on the stone slabs were sections of the Kyankan Great Shift, mental cultivation method written in Persian, as well as Yang Dingshan's dying words: the destined one who performs 3 kneelings and 9 kowtows will be granted my Kyankan Great Shift, mental cultivation method. Once the divine skill is mastered, the stone door can be pushed open to reach Bright Peak. After the destined one succeeds, you must convey my orders to the Ming cult's 4 great protectors, ordering the golden-haired Lion King Zisun to temporarily assume the position of cult leader, and the Kyankan Great Shift, mental cultivation method shall also be supervised by Zisun. In the future, go to the Persian Ming cult headquarters to retrieve the sacred flame token. Besides these last words, there was also a reminder for the so-called destined one, that is, this mental cultivation method emphasizes internal energy cultivation. Ordinary people need to practice for 30 years, while masters with their Ren and Du, meridians opened, only need 3 hours to complete it. For Liang Yue at this moment, kneeling or not was just a formality. With a cultivation method right in front of him, he naturally didn't hesitate. As for the dying request of this cult leader Yang Dingshan, he could only try his best to convey it: I'm not a member of the Ming cult. Even if I learn the Ming cult's kung fu, it doesn't necessarily mean I have to join the Ming cult, but I guess this can be considered receiving a favor. If you receive a favor, you must repay it. Then, I'll help them get through this crisis, and then we'll be even. Yeah, that's it. Having made this decision, Liang Yue no longer distracted himself with other thoughts. He placed a Vajra Bodhi seed in front of him and gave it a piece of dragon meat. Then he began to concentrate on reading the mental cultivation method on the stone slab. The creation of this Kyankan Great Shift may not have originated from the mysterious ancient Persia, but the person who created it must have drawn inspiration from the relevant techniques and concepts of those foreign lands. Therefore, the cultivation method in this divine skill inheritance is not entirely the same as the internal energy cultivation methods in the central plains of China. Fortunately, although the words on the stone slab in front of him were written in Persian, Yang Dingshan, as the leader of the central plains Ming cult, still wrote in the Chinese writing style. Moreover, with Liang Yue's language proficiency skill assisting him, reading the Persian text on the wall naturally posed no obstacles. About a quarter of an hour later, he finally finished reading the Kyankan Great Shift, mental cultivation method. Carefully he slowly exhaled a breath of air, relying on his photographic memory. All the details of this cultivation method were now clear in his mind. Immediately, Liang Yue gently closed his eyes, and his lips began to open and close constantly, murmuring. At this moment, he was deducing the feasibility and operational principles of this cultivation method in his mind, and understanding it on this basis. This was a necessary step in cultivating a cultivation method. A full half an hour later, Liang Yue suddenly opened his eyes. In an instant, a divine light flashed in his eyes, and a trace of understanding emerged from the depths of his pupils. This cultivation method is feasible. Moreover, it has many unique insights into the use of internal force and the development of physical potential, and even the use of the physical body can be described as unconventional except for the 7th level, which needs to be further deduced. The other 6 levels are indeed of great help to me. Thinking of this, Liang Yue took another deep breath and was about to try to cultivate, but he frowned slightly. He looked around at the environment of the hall. Braziers were constantly burning around him, and 2 decayed skeletal remains were sitting next to him. In this environment, the indoor air quality was obviously poor. I don't know how Zhang Wuji cultivated in this environment. The first level of the Kyankan Great Shift is a technique that teaches people how to guide their energy, which involves many subtle meridian operation techniques for those who have poor control over true energy. It is difficult to even get started. In the original story, Zhang Wuji had the assistance of the magical 9 Yang divine skill, and he overcame the difficulties of this level in just a moment. The Hunan skill that Liang Yue practiced may not be as powerful as the famous 9 Yang divine skill. However, as an authentic Taoist secret internal cultivation method, it also emphasizes the delicate control of internal energy. In addition, with the assistance of the dragon blood power, a large amount of bloodline energy was transformed into martial arts internal force by himself. With a nearly continuous supply, Liang Yue took this opportunity to directly open up the large meridian circulation and many subtle small meridians in his body, successfully advancing to the peak of the acquired realm. It can be said that at this moment, his state is almost perfect. At the same time, this guy also believes that he will definitely not be much worse than Zhang Wuji, although the other party is the son of this plane, with many factors such as luck, opportunity, and comprehension in this local realm added to himself, Liang Yue is obviously even better after all. No matter how much of a protagonist Zhang Wuji is, he can only toss around in the current plane. Liang Yue has the opportunity to constantly cross between the heavens and worlds, using the magic of all worlds to train himself. How can this luck be compared to someone who can't even get out of one world? About 2 hours later, a long sigh suddenly sounded in the stone hall. Then, at this time, Liang Yue slowly opened his eyes, and strands of abundant internal force continued to surge out between his palms, sometimes swirling and intertwined, and sometimes flashing like shooting stars in a broken line. Soon, this invisible internal force began to flow rapidly around his body, flowing again and again, like raindrops constantly sliding disorderly on the glass cover, branching, shattering, merging, seemingly scattered, but following some kind of special trajectory for a time. It even bloomed with a strange beauty. After a moment, this seemingly chaotic internal force suddenly stopped, and then gathered into several strands, and then slowly merged back into Liang Yue's body. A total of 6 levels of mental cultivation method took a little more than 2 hours, which is much faster than Yang Dingshan's instructions. It seems luck is on my side. Huff with a thought, Liang Yue slowly exhaled the turbid air in his chest, and a look of satisfaction appeared on his face. With a thought, the task panel appeared in front of him. Looking at the words Kayank and Great Shift, that were already listed on the light curtain at this time, this guy nodded suddenly with understanding. It seems that the system's intention in releasing this task should be to allow me to obtain more advanced cultivation methods and then play a sufficient reference role in my cultivation. So the specific carrier of this secret book, whether it is a book, a stone slab, or a memory body, is not a restriction. But even so, in order to save himself some unnecessary trouble in the future, Liang Yue still took out his ball and recorded the Persian text on the stone slab one by one. After finishing, he directly displayed his strength, which was more than 10 times that of ordinary people, and sent the fallen stone slabs back to the top of the stone door. Even the line of words in front of Yang Dingshan's remains were covered again and covered with a layer of dust. In short, Liang Yue didn't want to destroy the opportunity that belonged to Zhang Wuji. Even if in the plot of this movie world, that kid finally destroyed the 6 stone slabs recording the Kayank and Great Shift mental cultivation method, but that was just his choice, and it had nothing to do with him. Afterwards, he beckoned to Vajra, who had been waiting impatiently beside him, and hugged the little guy in his arms with a wave of his hand. A gust of wind suddenly blew up in the hall. For a time, dust flew, and the braziers flickered. When everything settled down, the traces of Liang Yue's arrival were buried. Then, this guy hummed a little tune and slowly walked towards the exit of the forbidden area along another road. As he walked, he kept waving his palm, not forgetting to blow away all the footprints behind him. Since he had already made a promise to help him and cult members get through this difficult time, the time had come to fulfill his promise. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.